Chapter 130, Destiny Not G? Yoon she couldn't believe his eyes. Why did Mumu's appearance suddenly emerge in his mind? What was wrong with him? Why did such an evil idea suddenly pop up in his mind? Mumu had no relationship with him, and the only link between them was the seed he planted in her body for protecting her. Why did the elf suddenly become her? Oh! Mumu emitted out a cute groan. She feebly fell down in the hot spring and lost her voice due to shame. That was too awkward. Why did her body feel this way? Woo. No, Mumu wouldn't be a bad child. Mumu, are you okay? Did you bathe in the water too long? Who are you? Asked with concern. She looked at Mumu's burning face, then stretched out her hand to take her temperature. Your face is hot. Your temperature is too high. Hiss. Mumu blushed as if she was burning. Her snow-white skin was covered with a layer of pink. Mumu is becoming a bad child. Woo. Be good, it's okay. You just stayed in the hot water too long. Children shouldn't bathe in a hot spring too long. Something happened just now. Yoon she gazed at the thread between himself and Mumu, which had suddenly been dyed with a suspicious red-colored layer. Yoon she was sure that before he had gone to the hot spring, the thread was still normal. But something strange had happened to Mumu's seed just now. Maya, why has this thread changed its color? Shouldn't the threads all be transparent? In fact, that's a hint from your love system, Maya stammered. She was too embarrassed to explain that. What's the hint that makes the thread turn red? Yoon she suddenly had a kind of foreboding. Perhaps. Maybe. It should be a hint about the resonance between two lovers. Which means, Master and Mumu have a very high synchronization rate. Maya finally told Yoon she the startling truth. This is a hint from the great stars. It's just like the destiny not in Eastern gods' domains fairy stories. A destiny not between Mumu and I. Don't be ridiculous. She is still a child. Yoon she shouted. At any rate, Mumu couldn't be his lover. She and Yi Li must wait for at least 7-8 years to be his candidate brides. If he stretched out his hand to them before that, he would be worse than a beast. He always considered himself as an upright gentleman. He only wanted to run his bakery and marry one of his childhood sweetheart. It has nothing to do with the thread. Perhaps it's because Master and Mumu have a high corresponding nature. Maya also didn't know the reason clearly. Whatever she thought, she didn't think that Mumu would like Yoon she so much from the very beginning. That was too weird. Only Hua's love had reached such an extent so far as she knew. The twin witches, Hua Yu, and Xiao Cao were still far from reaching this extent. Heck, how can it be possible? Mumu isn't even an Eastern god's domain local person. Yoon she was speechless to hear his star elf stupid words. Perhaps it was a bug in his love system. After all, according to his personal experience, the great stars were unreliable when things referred to love. Awakening the sleeping beauty by kissing and saving the princess on the tower. How old these fairy stories were. What decade were the stars living in? It must be the same reason to make the stars mistakenly believe that Mumu's thread was a destiny knot. A girl came from a distant place to look for his father. Didn't this sound like a fairy tale? Was it one of the reasons? She is young, but you can wait for her to grow up, my master. As the communicator of the great stars, Maya didn't think that the stars would make mistakes. The stars recorded the universe's beginning and its end. Their will was beyond time and all living beings' imagination. Since the stars thought that the thread between Mumu and Yoon she was a destiny knot, then they shouldn't be wrong. After all, the star love system was made for teaching Yoon she how to love and escape away from his 4 ex-girlfriends. Since you can accept Yi Li, why can't you accept Mumu? Cheer up, master. To the star elf, she didn't care about the moral principles of mortals. She only needed to follow the star's will, helping her master grow up, learn how to love, and to become strong. I don't understand. I mean, I was unlucky enough in my past life. Why do I have to continue to make mistakes? Can't I just have one lover? Can't I keep hiding my identity and marry Hua? Isn't that good enough? Yoon she sighed. Sorry, but you can't. If you choose Hua, I have to say that only death is waiting for you. Maya immediately warned her master to give up this impracticable idea. If Yunshi was satisfied with the existing state and married Hua Hua, after the apostle found him, he would die. No, his condition would be even worse than death. I know. I'm just saying. So, do I have to use this method to become stronger? Yunshi raised his hand and gazed at the girl's seeds. Every minute, every second, there was various information flowing into his body via the seed's threads. Likewise, his information also flowed to the girls via the threads at the same time. Taking the twin witch's seeds and Hua Hua's seed as the peak that he could reach, himself as the core, and the dozens of female swordsmen as the branches, a web made by using the star's power had been born. It looked like a beautiful star map. He was the sun, and the girls were stars, revolving around him. The sun and the stars were connected by countless light threads like a never-ending rhythm. Like the sun that will rise from the horizon every day, even if I'm surrounded by the relentless darkness, I will also break it by using my mutilated body. Like the night that will come every day, even if I'm troubled due to the twisted fate today, I still believe that the world will never change. Only we will be changed. The truth that we are still alive is our strongest weapon. The sun, the moon, and the stars will never to be separated. The sun and the stars had appeared, then where was the moon? Maybe it meant that the most excellent girl would rise from the stars, becoming the moon to accompany the sun? Chapter 131. Starwings' various comprehensions, various scenes, and various colors were vivid in Yunshi's mind. As if they were flowers that were blossoming in a garden, the threads between Yunshi and the girls were indeed increasing his power steadily. Even though Yunshi hadn't entered any trial recently, he could still feel that his understanding about sword skills was growing, and his talent was also constantly getting stronger at the same time. The best evidence was that Crane Wing's twin swords were making happy, tremulous sounds. One of the special properties of the twin swords was that they could become stronger as their owner's talent became stronger. When Yunshi had just obtained the twin swords, he could barely control them to launch flying attacks within 10 meters. Now, the range had increased to 15 meters. His sword flying ability had also increased. In the past, he couldn't hover above the ground higher than 2 meters, but now, he could fly about 3 meters above the ground. This had barely entered the realm of air battle. The girl's growth advanced Yunshi's growth, and Yunshi's growth also advanced the girl's growth. They had formed a perfect, virtuous cycle. It wasn't a kind of inconspicuous growth, but like a seed under the soil, suddenly being exposed to the sun and growing comfortably and naturally. Maya, will it be better for all the girls if I share my seeds to as many girls as I can? The more Yunshi used the seed system, the more love from the stars Yunshi could feel. The system could not only improve his power but also improve his talent. That was too fantastic. Moreover, it wasn't only increasing his talent, but also included the girl's talents and powers. Yes. Master, you'd better share your seeds to all the good girls you will meet. For example, Mumu is a very good target. You did well at that time. Your seeds aren't only good for yourself, but are also good for them. Maya never felt bored carrying out the task the stars ordered her to do. As long as Yunshi was still at the mortal rank, he could share his seeds with about 100 girls, and he had only used about 40 seeds till now. There were still 60 quotas before Yunshi reached the hero rank. If he didn't use them, that would be a great loss. I must urge my master to find more promising girls and give out all the 100 seed. The star elf, Maya, secretly made this decision in her heart. At the same time, in the hot spring, the girls were discussing a very important matter. Any, since we hit it off with each other, why don't we form a formal group? Yes. We were all born in White Lotus Sword Domain, and gathered together from different places and became the best of friends. This must be Destiny's guidance. It's about time. No one here thinks that she can't become a formal disciple of Sword Palace, right? Of course not. After sharing Yunshi's seeds, the girls were congenial to each other's tastes, and their talents had also improved to an incredible extent. Even if they were not as good as Hua Yu and Xiao Cao, but they were sure that they would reach the hero rank someday. It sounded like unreasonable confidence, but they were so sure about that and not one of them had any doubt about that. After being blessed by Mai's black hair, they had become different. Their lives had been changed after that day. Yunshi thought that no one would realize his behavior of propagating his seeds, but he ignored the girls' instincts. They had vaguely realized that there must be some link between Mai and their changes from a long time ago. Hence, the girls gathered here and considered how could they repay the miracle Mai had given them. So, what can be a suitable name for our group? Hua Yu is our leader and Xiao Cao is our deputy leader, so, how about Rose Knights? Ling Ling raised her hand. As one of Hua Yu's subordinates, she naturally supported her big sister. No, we are not nobles from Western God's domain. Besides, there are already a lot of Rose Knights all over the God's domains. The civilian girls shook their heads together. The Plantagenet Knights? The noble girls asked. Due to Hua Yu, they were inclined to choose a Western-style name. No. Why are they all flowers? I think that Convallaria Knights sounds better. Undoubtedly, this was a girl who biased towards Xiao Cao. Hua Yu and Xiao Cao's supporters were split about half and half. Hua Yu's noble identity let her easily become their leader. Even the civilian girls didn't have too many complaints about that. However, it didn't mean that they would let the noble girls decide their group's name all by themselves. Flower or grass? Both of them had their own ideas. They singularly quarreled with each other. I think that Starwings will be a good name. As they quarreled, Mumu woke up. She offered them her proposal. It doesn't sound bad. The noble girls looked at each other, then nodded. Since they couldn't use traditional female group names such as Rose, Plantagenet, and Iris, then Starwings, which sounded neutral and dreamy, was also acceptable. Good girl, Mumu. You're smart. I also think that Starwings is a good name. Well, look at the starry sky. I can image that someday we will finally sprout wings and fly amongst the stars. That's romantic. I like it. From now on, we are the Starwings female knights. Mumu's charm was matchless. Besides, Starwings sounded romantic and poetic, conforming with the girls' likes. They were all satisfied with this name. Therefore, from now on, I'm the leader of Starwings female knights. Everyone, be good to each other. As the Hua family's girl, it was a natural thing to form a small group. However, after being elected as the leader of Starwings female knights, Hua Yu still felt that a ball of flame was burning in her heart. I'm the deputy leader. Well, not bad. Xiao Cao looked at Hua Yu's breasts and her own breasts, then finally nodded and accepted the difference. She wasn't suited to be the leader, which was a career that needed to spend a lot of time communicating and leading everyone. Her only mission was to practice her sword skills to the limit and defeat all the potential enemies of Starwings female knights. If Hua Yu was the imperial crown of Starwings female knights symbolizing honor and glory, then Xiao Cao was the sword of Starwings female knights eliminating all their enemies, even if it meant that she would be bathed in blood. As for Mai, the reason for the birth of Starwings female knights, she was naturally the emperor of the imperial crown and the sword. Starwings female knights finally formed. At that time, the girls didn't know how far the Starwings female knights would go on, and how famous they would be in the future. Chapter 132, Invasive Creatures. She was standing at the top of the mountain and watching the whole island. The place where he and the girls were was just a very small area if comparing its size to the whole island's size. Judging from the sun's location, they should be in the eastern corner of the island within a radius of about 10 kilometers. The dormant volcano wasn't the summit of the island. It was just a part of a group of volcanoes. The largest volcano was about several kilometers in height at the center of the island. Although the island was in a tropical region, Yunshi could see ice caps and white snow on the volcano. I never thought that it would be such a large island. Yunshi only saw a small part of the island, but the area he could see was already 1,000 times larger than the small town he lived in the past. The island was located in the forbidden area of White Lotus Sword Domain. Apparently, there wouldn't be any aborigines. It was an uninhabited island that had never been developed, which meant that it was an impossible goal to leave the island only with his and the girls' power. They'd better collect all the materials they could find from White Lotus's wreckage and the forest, to build a solid makeshift camp and wait for Sword Palace's rescuers. Maybe there was no one that could match the Apostle even in the whole White Lotus Sword domain, but there must be someone far stronger than the Apostle in the Sky Sword God's domain. The legendary Sky Sword were a group of swordsmen that ruled all sword domains, and the master of Sky Sword God's domain was the strongest swordsman in the whole Eastern God's domain. The fact that White Lotus Sword domain was invaded by an unknown Apostle wasn't a small matter. Yunshi thought that the rescuers should be already on their way now. Before the rescuers come here, we should make sure that we have enough food, water, and a safe place to live. Yunshi listed all the troubles they may face. Finally, he cleared his head. He and the girls would strive to survive on the island together. None of them knew how to live on an uninhabited island, and they didn't know if there was something dangerous on the island. Therefore, they must be very careful. Master, be careful. A large part of the sky is becoming unstable. Whilst Yunshi was working on his desert island survival plan, Maya suddenly warned him in a serious tone, invaders are intruding this airspace. Red alert. Red alert. They are not apostles. They are monsters from the void. Even if Maya didn't warn Yunshi, he and all the girls on the island saw that the sky was breaking up like a layer of glass, suffusing with waves. A large number of unknown monsters were staring at the island and the living beings on the island with their vicious eyes. Maya, how many are they? Suddenly, he had to stop his desert island surviving plan and fight against intruders. The change was too drastic. Scanning, the space is repairing itself, but there are a fourth-ranked monster and a lot of its children squeezing into the airspace. Maya's voice sounded anxious. Hiss. A humongous blue spider was squeezing into the world from the void. It was about 10 meters long with countless dark shadow patterns on its back. Almost half of its sharp legs had broken, but it still emitted a gloomy and cold temperament. Countless spider threads dropped down along its 8 legs and were tightly wrapped around the island's main peak. With that, it barely pulled itself out from the void crack in the air. It's a dark shadow spider, a common hunter in the void. It's good at spinning webs and hatching little spiders, having a burning desire to catch prey to feed to its descendants. It's seriously injured now, but the chance of you winning is still not more than 10%. Maya searched her memory and told Yunshi the spider's information. It was one of the bottom feeders in the void and known for its strong reproductive capacity and patience when it hunted its prey. In essence, dark shadow spiders didn't need to eat blood and flesh. They could even live without food for dozens of years. The only purpose for them to hunt was to produce descendants. My chance of winning is not more than 10%. That's really bad. Yunshi watched the dark shadow spider. Maybe it was just a negligible existence in the void, but to him and the girls, it was a horrible monster that had the ability to eliminate them all. Be careful, Master. It has noticed you. Maya warned Yunshi in an anxious tone. I know. Yunshi had seen its 8 compound eyes, which were full of killing intention inside them. To the dark shadow spider, it didn't need a reason to kill, because it would never give up any chance to catch prey, especially when the prey was a black-haired, sweet human. In the dark shadow spider's memory, humans were a kind of super delicious food. I want to eat this human, hunting and hunting, then produce my descendant. The dark shadow spider's instinct was telling it that it was time to kill. I can't run away. The whole island has become the spider's hunting ground. Yunshi took a deep breath with large drops of sweat dripping from his skin. He felt nervous. After all, this was not a star's trial. He was facing a bloodthirsty monster in the reality. Maya, tell me characteristics of its attacks. Yunshi started to run to the highest volcano at his full speed. Yes. Dark shadow spider is a creature that is good at lurking and spinning webs. Normally, dark shadow spiders will take a large amount of time to catch prey in the void, so they won't eat their prey easily. Instead, they tend to stalk prey and wait till the best spawning time. At that time, they will ovulate and fertilize themselves to produce clones. Oh, the spider is a hermaphrodite. Its superpower is its dark shadow spider thread that has strong ductility and tenacity. It's not easy to break free from its threads. As Yunshi heard Maya's words, the dark shadow spider had descended onto the volcano and started to hunt. One spider thread after another formed a prodigious web. Taking the dark shadow spider as the center, The web had covered the whole area within a radius of 10 kilometers. No. Who are you? Xiao Cao and the other girls are still there. Yunshi stepped on the twin swords, flying to the volcano. Ah. Ya. Nu. The girls emitted plaintive cries. They were bathing. None of them had expected that they would face such a sudden misfortune. They were wrapped up by the threads and dragged into the sky. You said that the spider wouldn't kill its prey easily, did you? Looking at this scene, Yunshi's heart was burning with anger. If the spider ate them immediately. No, I won't let it do this. Before the spider starts to produce its descendants, it won't kill its prey. Master, be careful, it has locked on you. Chapter 133, Upgrade Wooer. No. Let go of me. Let go of me. Help. The girls' cries resounded throughout the sky. The Starwings female knights had just been formed, then immediately faced its first huge crisis. What? What's this? Ling Ling's arms and legs were wrapped in countless black threads. No matter how hard she tried, she still couldn't get rid of these tough threads. Her shoulders shivered. Her white, attractive arms were folded in front of her chest in shyness, but could only barely cover her full breasts. As for the beautiful curve between her waist and ass, and her slender, white gem-like legs, she had no way to cover up them. The other members of Starwings' female knights were also wrapped up in the web. Their gem-like breasts, smooth and snow-white skin, and trembling bodies were all exposed in front of Yunshi's eyes. Looking at so many girls' naked bodies, Yunshi could barely control his heartbeat. What a damn spider! The self-invited spider's first hunt had caught 35 girls, almost all the members of Starwings' female knights. Only Who Are You, Xiao Cao escaped from the spider, and Mumu, she was hiding in a place that even Yunshi couldn't find. As one of the 3 strongest members of the Starwings' female knights, Yunshi immediately guessed Who Are You and Xiao Cao's plan. Who are you, Xiao Cao? Yunshi didn't need to say any more words. In the face of the dark shadow spider from the void, the 3 people made the same choice. Fighting. Yunshi took the lead. He ran to the spider from the front to draw the dark shadow spider's attention. His crane wings twin swords flew in the air, making the void monster feel a little threatened. Well, if it was a human, then the twin sword was like a pair of poisonous wasps. That was how the dark shadow spider felt. Hiss. It expertly put the captured prey aside, spinning its web again. Compared to the web it had just spun, this time, its web was more elaborate and it had almost no loopholes. Master, be careful. Don't be wrapped in the web. I know. Yunshi looked at the web deeply with his eyes. His chance of winning was less than 10%. If he didn't pay his whole attention to the spider, his chance of survival would be very slim. However, he wasn't going to give up as long as there was still a flash of hope. He could clearly feel the girls' fear and anxiety via the seeds between them. Oh, it's horrible. Am I going to die? No. I still want to do many things. We just formed Starwings female knights. How can I die here now? I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Somebody help me. Yunshi clenched his fists. For the first time, he used his seeds connecting ability to comfort the girls. He had never done it before, but he naturally understood how to do it. No, you won't die. I will protect you. His voice was firm and strong. That was his voice echoing within their souls. That was an oath Yunshi made to the Starwings female knights. No one would die. You all trust me, so I will believe in your trust. Give me your talents and powers. I won't give up on any of you. This time, let me save everyone. If only a miracle can defeat the monster, then I will become that miracle. His voice directly echoed in all the captured girls' hearts. Yunshi was talking to them via their souls, telling the girls his heartfelt thinking. Hearing his voice, powers started to emerge from the bottom of the girls' hearts. As if they were a group of lost lambs that were hearing an angel's voice, they saw his appearance with their eyes, then their hearts naturally felt peaceful. They heard his footsteps with their ears, then their bodies naturally relaxed. They touched his soul of light, then they were naturally relieved. Their hope still exists. My hadn't given up on them. She is fighting for them, rushing to the monster for them. The threads among the girls were becoming clearer and clearer. The more dangerous the current situation was, the more solid the friendship amongst the girls would become. Their hope was only as great as their despair. The girls prayed for their miracle, Their wishes continuously turned into countless true powers, enchanting Yunshi's body via the invisible threads. Power. A new power was emerging in Yunshi's body, language and cognition, behavior and appearance, soul and body. The girls' pure wishes turned into powers and crossed the starry sky, turning into a mirror that could achieve all their wishes. Breaking the barrier. As if it was just a piece of paper being torn, the barrier between the second rank and the third rank instantly disappeared inside Yunshi's body. Instantly, Yunshi understood that his threads weren't just some ornaments. They were true yokes between him and the girls. The seeds in their souls were linked by these threads, transferring him incredible powers to create a miracle for them. This was a system the stars specially made for him. It was his unique power. The great sword maid's black uniform was emitting a pleasurable and exciting smell. The killing princess's power was gradually being awakened by Yunshi's heart. Yes. Since I have to fight, then I should have no hesitation. At this moment, he only wanted to see his enemy's death. Break. Yunshi stepped on the flying male sword, holding the female sword in one of his hands. The things which he couldn't do in the past, the realm which he could only look up to in the past, was becoming closer and familiar. He successfully launched the sword skill which Hua Hua had once shown in a previous battle. Flying Swallow 16-fold attack. The sharp sword turned into a flying swallow, cutting off the overwhelming spider threads. Speed up, and speed up. This was Yunshi's flying swallow sword. It wasn't as nimble as Hua Hua's sword, wasn't as heavy as Hua Yu's sword, and wasn't as instinctual as an animal, like Xiao Cao's sword. He just made it faster, and faster, till the limit of his speed. He broke through all the barriers in front of him and flew straight to the summit of the volcano, where the void intruder was. Hiss! The dark shadow spider's compound eyes stared at Yunshi. For the first time, it became a little serious. In its eyes, Yunshi had just been upgraded from a poisonous wasp to a killer bee now. Chapter 134, Spread Faster, Be Faster. Like the wind and the thunder, he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't step back. The gap between the mortal rank and the hero rank was wide. Yunshi had to risk everything on his luck to fight for the smallest chance of winning. His heart was beating fast, and his blood was flowing backwards due to nervousness. For the first time in Yunshi's life, he was going to challenge a hero-ranked enemy with only his own strength. It wasn't a dream or a trial, but a real, life-and-death battle. If he died, he wouldn't be revived. Even though he had died hundreds of times in Star's trials, he still had only one life in the real world. To challenge a fourth-ranked monster as a third-ranked swordsman. Yunshi never dared to imagine this in his past life. Then, why did he feel so excited in his heart? Stepping on the male sword, the information about the dark shadow spider was flowing into Yunshi's mind. Its body was big, over 10 meters long. Half of its 8 legs had been broken, which would greatly reduce its movement speed in battle. Its hero-ranked superpower was its black threads, which could block the area within a radius of 10 kilometers and lock on all the targets within the range. As a hero-ranked living being, the dark shadow spider's strength, attack, and defense were all above Yunshi's. If the dark shadow spider was still at its peak state, Maya wouldn't tell Yunshi that his chance of winning was 10%, but 0%. Its broken legs were Yunshi's only chance of winning. Even though it was a hero-ranked living being, when it faced the void crack, it wouldn't be any tougher than paper, unless it became a legendary creature like the 8th-ranked white holy dragon, then it would have the ability to break the void. The dark shadow spider had barely pulled itself from the void into this world relying on its threads. As the price, half of its legs had been broken. Its movement speed had suffered a deadly blow. Speed. This was Yunshi's only advantage. Hiss. The dark shadow spider opened its cold compound eyes, locking onto Yunshi, who was rapidly flying in the air with his twin swords. Indeed. Its greatest weak point was its movement speed. However, its attack range was about 10 kilometers. With its inexhaustible black spider threads, Its weak point had been perfectly covered. Originally, dark shadow spiders weren't famous for their movement speed. They were hunters, who usually made traps and waited for their prey to fall into their web, then launched a fatal strike. The black spider threads immediately turned into ashes after they were cut off by Yunshi's crane wings twin swords. But at the same time, the dark shadow spider immediately emitted more spider threads. These black spider threads could instantly extend dozens of kilometers. They were retractable and controlled by the dark shadow spider's mind. It was rare to find prey in the void. Therefore, once the dark shadow found prey, it could be very patient. It could even spin a web for 10 years, then silently wait for the prey to be caught in its web. With the creepy spinning sounds, the dark shadow spider's web had finally been formed. If one looked down from the sky, one would see that the black web had covered the whole area within a radius of 30 kilometers. Yunshi was at the center of that web. The web was like an elaborate trap, not giving the prey the tiniest chance to escape. This was the dark shadow spider's dangerous hunting habit. Yunshi's flying swallow 16-fold attack had really taught it a lesson. This time, all the threads of the spider's web were made with over 10 black spider threads. The web's intensity was so high that it could even make all mortal-ranked people feel desperate. Fortunately, Yunshi's twin swords weren't normal. Even if comparing Crane Wing's twin swords to all hero-ranked weapons, they were at the top class and entitled to become a pair of artifacts. Flying Swallow 16-fold attack. 16 after images of sword crisscrossed in the air. Every attack was cut on the same point. This wasn't a property from Hua Hua's Flying Swallow sword, but a special ability from Xiao Cao's Mortal's sword. After practicing her sword skill for 1,000,000 times, Xiao Cao finally learned her perfect Mortal's sword, which was as stable as a stalk of grass at any time. The reinforced spiderweb was ripped off by Yunshi's attack again. This time, Yunshi was only about a kilometer away from the summit of the volcano, where the dark shadow spider was. To the dark shadow spider, Yunshi's danger class rose again. He had become a giant killer bee in its eyes. To the dark shadow spider, it was unable to move freely and was going to lay eggs. Yunshi's lightning speed was really a big problem for it now. Hiss. The dark shadow spider made a weird sound again. It slowly opened its mouth, emitting out a large quantity of black fluids from its mouth. It's coming. Yunshi could feel that the next 3 seconds would decide the battle's result. The first second. Black fluids gushed out from the dark shadow spider's mouth, then divided into 4 sections, spreading in the air. Each divided section was like a mirror, clearly reflecting Yunshi's figure, which meant that the dark shadow spider had put all its attention to its only threat, Yunshi. 4 ribbons formed by countless mirror surfaces crisscrossed and floated besides the dark shadow like 4 snakes. Once the black threads around them were touched by the 4 ribbons, they were immediately absorbed by them. After absorbing thousands of black threads, the ribbons turned a frightening dark black in the air and continuously emitted dissonant, horrible sounds. I can't dodge them. Yunshi observed the 4 ribbons and made a decision in his heart. This must be the dark shadow spider's strongest skill, its trump card, just like the male fiery dragon's breath. As a 3rd-ranked swordsman, he had forced the 4th-ranked dark shadow spider to use its strongest skill. It was already an amazing achievement that he could be proud of. However, Yunshi didn't want any achievement, he wanted to win. The second, high-speed shockwaves, which could even be seen by the naked eyes, appeared beside the 4 black ribbons, which had covered half of the island. Around and around, they spread as if they were stones that were breaking the surface of water. Crane Wing's twin swords, flying. Yunshi held the twin swords in both his hands. He launched his fastest, strongest attack towards the dark shadow spider. As if he was a shooting star, in the girl's worried eyes, Yunshi chose to face the difficulty. Chapter 135, Flying Yunshi the 3rd second. In the first 1/10 of the 3rd second, 4 huge black ribbons floated and crisscrossed in the air, forming a weird shape that looked like a large eye. This was one of the dark shadow spider's strongest abilities, Dark Shadow Evil Eye, a nightmare spun by itself. Looking at Yunshi, the dark shadow spider grinned. It laughed at the little bug's overconfident behavior. Its gigantic evil eye stared at Yunshi, staring at his skin, black hair, and flappy maid's uniform. In the third 1/10 of the third second, in the blink of an eye, a weird curse easily cut through Yunshi's body. Hiss. A heartbreaking scene appeared in front of the girls. Yunshi's maid's black uniform was pierced through by countless black light points. He was thrown out and flew in the air like a tattered paper doll. His strength, blood, and soul were all annihilated by the Dark Shadow Evil Eye. This skill was the Dark Shadow Spider's superpower and its trump card. To a mortal whose life and soul wasn't stronger than the Dark Shadow Spider, this was an inescapable, unstoppable, deathly blow. How dare you? Go to hell! At the instant Yunshi was hit, Hua Yu's white gold crossed sword and Xiao Cao's black iron sword cut the air, smashing on the Dark Shadow Spider's broken legs from both its sides. With Yunshi's cover, Hua Yu and Xiao Cao finally launched their attacks. However, their attacks only made a few slight wounds on the Dark Shadow Spider's body. Not everyone could cross the wide gap between the mortal rank and the hero rank like Hua. Even though the Dark Shadow Spider was badly hurt, its shell was still far harder than steel. In fact, the Dark Shadow Spider had noticed Hua Yu and Xiao Cao when they sneaked up on it. It just ignored them. After all, compared to Yunshi, they were just a pair of honeybees. In the middle of the third second, as the Dark Shadow Spider triumphantly looked at Yunshi's body dropping to the ground, Crane Wing's twin swords suddenly emitted rays of cold lights. Blow up. Yunshi used his last green hippo's seed to recover his physical strength. When the Dark Shadow Spider's evil eye had stared at Yunshi, he was almost killed, if he hadn't used the green hippo's seed, which he had hidden in his body just in case. The evil eye curse only plundered all of Yunshi's physical strength. His blood had almost frozen at that time. However, that was just the curse's side effect. The most powerful part of the Dark Shadow Spider's evil eye was directly released into Yunshi's soul. The black evil eye put one piece of dead information after another in Yunshi's body within 1/10 of a second, making him fall from the sky, making his whole body scattered and disunited. Pouring kerosene on his body and burning him to ashes. Tying him up on the cross, hanging him in the air, and making him die under the sun. Tying him up and fixing him in concrete, then sink him in the water till he was drowned. Hanging him to death. Throwing him into a snowfield and making him die of cold and hypoxia. Chopping him into pieces with swords. The Dark Shadow Spider had made 18 death methods to torture Yunshi, to make him fall into the worst nightmares it wove. To most living beings, a near-death experience would become the worst nightmare of their life. Most people couldn't even hold on till the end of the Dark Shadow Spider's first deathly nightmare. Their blood froze, and their lives were taken away. It was hard to recognize which part was reality and which part a dream, and if they failed to distinguish the parts, they would die in the reality and the nightmare at the same time. Once people's brains were fooled into thinking that they had died, then they would really die in the real world. However, the Dark Shadow Spider wouldn't have expected that although Yunshi hadn't had any death experience in reality, but its deadly nightmares were just a piece of cake to him, for he had died in the star's trails countless times. Dying 18 times? That pain wasn't even more painful than what the green hippo had done to him. The damage the Dark Shadow Spider's evil eye had caused Yunshi was actually zero, because he was already used to such since a long time ago. Only the Dark Shadow evil eye's side effect, which froze Yunshi's blood and drained his life, forced Yunshi to use his last green hippo seed, so that he could restore his energy at the last possible instant. All these things happened just in a second. Wandering between life and death, a new door suddenly opened up to Yunshi in his mind. Quicksilver motion reached perfection. Flying swallow sword reached perfection. Both of the two skills had reached perfection at the same time. They overlapped together, opening the door leading to the God's Sword skill for Yunshi. Nothing could be better than a real life-and-death battle to force a person to release their full potential. The girl's expectation and prayer. The killing princess's legacy was activated in the blood. Hua Yu, Xiao Cao, and all the other girls' seeds released their powers for him, to help him reach an unattainable realm. Sky-flying sword. Yunshi put one foot on the male sword. Transparent waves emerged around him. Yunshi didn't have the sky-flying bloodline, so he couldn't fly in the air like Hua. However, with the Crane Wing's twin sword's help and his boiling blood power, he finally created his own sky-flying sword. Speed up. Speed up. Once he started, he couldn't stop, and wasn't ready to stop. Stepping on one of Crane Wing's twin swords, Yunshi turned into a flash of lighting, hovering in the sky. With his full strength, he flew to the dark shadow spider, who was in a debilitating condition after casting its dark shadow evil eye. One transparent halo after another emerged in the air. They displayed deadly rhythms, announcing the dark shadow spider's death. Crane Wing's twin swords crossed in the air. As if they were a pair of poison stingers, they penetrated into the dark shadow spider's compound eyes, splashing its blood in the air. Oh, so the spider had black blood. Yunshi thought in his heart. He had used up his energy. He felt a fit of dizziness, finally couldn't keep flying and heavily fell to the ground. Oh, white, and white, and white. Yunshi toppled down onto the summit of the volcano, seeing a lot of warm, snow-white, alluring, and cute bodies. 1, 2, 3, 38. They were all here. Not one less. That was really, really good. Chapter 136. The scent of milk. Yunshi smelt a very pleasant scent. It was sweet, soft, and smelt like milk. Unlike Yi Li's milky odor, it was more mature and richer. He tried to open his eyes, but failed to do this simple action. Oh, right. Yunshi remembered. He overdrew his strength, finally releasing the god's sword skill, Sky Flying Sword, which he had always failed to learn in the past. With Sky Flying Sword and the Crane Wing's twin sword's attack power, he finally tore through the dark shadow spider's steel shell, giving it a deadly blow. What happened after that? Had the dark shadow spider died? Had the girls been saved? Where was it now? Master, are you awake? Maya's voice echoed in Yunshi's mind, finally making him recover a bit from his condition. Maya, what happened to my body? Yunshi asked his star elf in confusion. Nothing. You are just too weak after overtaxing your strength. You will recover after about 24 hours. Master, you had depleted all of your energy. Unfortunately, the dark shadow spider abandoned its old body. It split itself into a new body and escaped away with its core. Otherwise, you could use its seed to recover yourself. Maya told Yunshi the result in an apologetic tone. However, its old body has been destroyed. It should have already downgraded from the hero rank and ran to the deep side of the island. It won't be a threat temporarily. After all, there is nothing that it can use to recover itself. Sigh. As he had expected, it wasn't that easy to defeat a hero-ranked being. However, this was still a good result that Yunshi could accept. After that, Yunshi felt his body being lifted up. He could feel a reassuring, soft and resilient cushion on his back. Ah, he heard a familiar voice. It was "Who are you?" No, she doesn't open her mouth. In that case, I can't feed her anything. Yunshi could feel Hua Yu's anxiety from her voice. No problem, my fair lady. I know how to solve this problem. You can feed her with your mouth. Yunshi heard Ling Ling's voice from his back. It seemed that they were looking after him. Well. It seems that I have to do that. Was it an illusion? Yunshi felt that Hua Yu's voice sounded very happy. Cheer up. You can do that. Yunshi felt that the milky smell was getting closer and closer. After a while, he felt the girl's warm lips touched his mouth with the warm milk. Despite Yunshi not being able to open his eyes, he still knew what Hua Yu was doing. With the warm milk, her small tongue stirred in Yunshi's mouth, sending the milk down Yunshi's throat. Bang! Yunshi's body was still fatigued. Only his heart was pounding faster and faster. The thread between their seeds was rapidly becoming tighter. Yunshi could also feel Hua Yu's pounding heart. Excitement, agitation, tenderness, expectation, and addiction. Various emotions flowed into Yunshi's heart through the thread. The thread was giving a sweet, curative, instrumental performance. Cough. Yunshi felt that his drained seed was being activated by Hua Yu's emotions. He slowly opened his eyes, looking at Hua Yu's pink-white face. She was so nervous that she closed her eyes tighter, so she didn't see that Yunshi had been awakened. Hua Yu let out a sigh of relief after pouring all the milk into Yunshi's mouth. Although Yunshi just fainted, but his pale face and feeble breathing really scared her. Sorry, if we were stronger at that time, Hua Yu muttered. She swallowed another sip of milk, trying to feed Yunshi again. Then, she saw Yunshi's wide-opened black eyes and his shy look. Whoa! Hua Yu instantly blushed. Her face turned from a red apple into a red sun, emitting an attractive temperament. For the first time, Yunshi saw her shy look. She behaved as if she was a kitten who was found secretly eating. It was too cute. Especially when the white milk was still dripping from her mouth. That gave him an indescribable allure. What's the matter? Ling Ling was behind Yunshi, so she didn't see that Yunshi had opened his eyes. She still instigated Hua Yu, don't be shy. This is just a necessary feeding behavior. Due to the milk in her mouth, Hua Yu couldn't say anything, but looking at Yunshi's feeble appearance, she showed a determined look on her face. Ling Ling's suggestion was effective. Therefore, she needed to continue, even though she had never done this before. Hua Yu got up her nerve and kissed Yunshi again. She sent the warm milk and her tongue into his mouth at the same time again. Gu. Yunshi was forced to swallow the milk. He felt that his exhausted body did obtain a bit of new strength from that. Oh. The female element is effective. Master, let her feed you. In that case, your recovery time can be greatly reduced. Maya looked at this scene with a contented look. Compared to the milk, Hua Yu's female element was better medicine for Yunshi's recovery. Why do I feel that I'm an abnormal negative character? I'm an upright gentleman. Yunshi retorted his star elf in his mind. Okay, is that enough? My. After feeding Yunshi the milk for 10 times, Hua Yu's face was hotter. If you feel it is enough, blink your eyes once. If you don't feel it is enough, blink your eyes twice. Yunshi strenuously blinked one of his eyes once, signaling her that he didn't need her to feed him again. Even if she did nothing, his body could recover itself after a dozen of hours. However, Yunshi forgot that his body was still uncontrollable now. After the first blink, he uncontrollably blinked again. 1, 2 blinks. Hua Yu felt nervous. Was the sequela of the battle too serious? Not enough. Well, let me feed you some more. The next an hour, Yunshi's body and Hua Yu's body were full of the scent of milk. Chapter 137, Dark Shadow Gems. Thanks to Hua Yu's feeding and her girl element, Yunshi's physical strength finally recovered to an extent that he could open his mouth. Enough. Hua Yu. If Yunshi didn't hear it for himself, he wouldn't believe that the deep, attractive voice was his own voice. What the hell was the Great Sword Maid's legacy? Oh, great. Hearing Yunshi's voice, Hua Yu's face brightened up, as if she was soaking in the sun. Her golden hair hung down on Yunshi's face. He could even see the tears in her beautiful eyes. I'm sorry to have worried you. In that moment of life and death, they understood each other's minds. For the girls who were captured by the Dark Shadow Spider, Yunshi risked his life to challenge the hero-ranked monster. For Yunshi, who protected them regardless of danger, the girls also transferred all their powers to protect him. After the Dark Shadow Spider's attack, Mai had become even more important in all the girls' hearts. When Yunshi had released his sky-flying sword, flying to the seemingly unbeatable Dark Shadow Spider, all the Starwings female knights had cried. After defeating the Dark Shadow Spider, Yunshi toppled down to the ground. This scene made all the girls feel worried and cry their hearts out. Fortunately, they finally made sure that Yunshi just fainted due to exhaustion. They finally smiled through tears. The links amongst them were becoming tighter due to the crisis they faced together. Yunshi could feel that the threads between him and the girls were becoming tighter and brighter. At the same time, a lot of girls had broken past their limits during the crisis. Especially when they saw Yunshi toppling down to the ground, 10 girls had upgraded to the second rank at the same time. Now, the Starwings female knights had 2 3-ranked members, a dozen of second-ranked members, and the remaining girls were all at the first rank. Even in the whole god domains, it could be regarded as a super strong knight group now. Is everyone okay? Don't worry, Mai. You saved everyone. That's fine. Yunshi barely opened his mouth. He felt that none of his body parts was in good condition. His muscles were torn due to overexertion. Especially his feet, the most important parts required to release Sky Flying Sword, had almost lost feeling. The secret of Sky Flying Sword was to control the airwaves under the feet. This was a god's sword skill that could let the user fly in the air. Strictly speaking, Yunshi's Sky Flying Sword was incomplete. He didn't have as much energy as Hua Hua, so he couldn't fly in the sky all by himself. His Sky Flying Sword was a simulation of Hua Hua's Sky Flying Sword, based on his Flying Swallow Sword and Quicksilver motion. With the Crane Wings Twin Sword's flying ability, he was able to step in the air. It looked very similar to Hua Hua's Sky Flying Sword, but lacked both explosiveness and dexterity. Sky Flying Sword, incomplete, one could call Yunshi's strongest sword skill that way. After all, God's sword skills weren't something mortals could learn. Half a month ago, Yunshi wasn't even a first-ranked swordsman. It was already a miracle for him to master the incomplete Sky Flying Sword. Even though it was incomplete, it was still a god's sword skill. It had raised Yunshi's battle power to the hero rank within a few seconds so that he could defeat the Dark Shadow Spider. If one didn't have hero-ranked power, they would not defeat a hero-ranked monster. Hua Hua was an exception. One must pay something to control the god sword as a mortal. Yunshi created the embryonic form of his god sword within 3 seconds. Even though he had eaten the green hippo's seed, he was still exhausted after the battle. After saying a few words, Yunshi had to close his eyes and fell into deep sleep again. When he opened his eyes again, it was already evening. The scent of milk still lingered in his mouth and on his lips, however, he sensed something different from Hua Yu's scent. They were Xiao Cao, Ling Ling, and a lot of other girls. Yunshi tried to move his body, then strenuously stood up. Very well. I can move now. Yunshi exercised his arms and legs, letting out a sigh of relief. Looking up, Yunshi found that he was in a cave. Probably being worried about being attacked by the Dark Shadow Spider again, the girls had moved their camp into the cave, which was easy to defend but hard to attack. Bright lights illuminated the originally dim cave. It seemed that the girls had collected a lot of goods and materials from White Lotus whilst he was sleeping. As the strongest weapon of the whole White Lotus sword domain, White Lotus really carried various goods and materials. From temporary tents to various foods, vegetables, and weapons. Even though they had just collected a few items, it was sufficient for them to build a camp. My, are you awake? Xiao Cao carried her black iron sword, stepping into the cave from outside. The distance between her footsteps were all the same, as if she had measured them with a ruler. Not only her footsteps, her breathing and the rhythm of her heartbeat were also as calm as an old well. Her spiritual state was already beyond mortals' imagination. Obviously, the battle between the Dark Shadow Spider and Yunshi had stimulated Xiao Cao and Hua Yu. They grew fast through battle. Hua Yu went to hunt the spider, and I had just killed several of the spider's avatars, too. We will avenge you. Xiao Cao casually threw several black gems to Yunshi, but her eyes were full of pride, as if she was saying, praise me, praise me. This is. Yunshi looked at the black gems, feeling some scent of deep darkness from them. Hua Yu says that they are dark shadow gems. They are the spider's life essences. Oh, the biggest gems were taken from the wounds you caused to the spider, Xiao Cao said. She sat beside Yunshi and gazed at him, as if she was a puppy that was waiting for its master's praise. Xiao Cao, you did well. Yunshi smiled and gently stroked her hair. Hum, I will do my best. My. Don't die. Chapter 138, For Bread. Rated Battle. 7 days later, a small fort was built in the middle area of the island, in front of the cave on the highest volcano. The fort wall was made of sharpened wooden pikes. There were sharp black thistles and thorns filled in the gaps, and unknown flowers blooming on the pikes. As the saying goes, a sparrow may be small, but it has all the vital organs. The fort the Starwings female knights built in 7 days had 3 layers for the defense system. Besides, they also drilled a deep well, which perfectly solved their water issues. For the first time on the island, human civilization started to be built. This day, in the center of the small fort, the girls were having a daily match, battle for the butter bread. In some sense, it was also a rated battle amongst the girls. The prize was Mai's butter bread, which could effectively replenish their energy. As the baker, Yunshi didn't need to take part in their battle, and because Mumu was too young, she could get butter bread without fighting. As for the other girls, they had to fight each other to strive for their butter bread. Yunshi would make about 50 rolls of butter bread every day, and the girls would decide the distribution based on battle rating. Normally, the leader, Hua Yu, and the deputy leader, Xiao Cao, would seize the first place and the second place, and the other girls strived for the places from the 3rd to the 10th. In Yunshi's eyes, it was just a game-like battle, but to the girls, it was their favorite recreational activity on the boring island. On the 7th day, almost all the girls had upgraded to the 2nd rank. For butter bread. For my tongue. For our cute Mai. The girls shouted slogans, bursting with enthusiasm and great potential. The barrier between the 1st rank and the 2nd rank had been unable to stop them. Even in the countries of Western God's domain, a knight group whose members were all at the 2nd rank could be regarded as a strong force. It was hard to believe that Starwings female knights was formed by a group of girls who hadn't even started their study lives in Sword Palace. Now, the girls who were fighting for the 3rd place and the 4th place were Ling Ling and Mai Lan from the 2 camps of Starwings female knights. Ling Ling was born in a decadent noble family. She was one of Hua Yu's subordinates. Mai Lan was born in a civilian family. She was one of Xiao Cao's loyal fans. Both of them were Hua Yu and Xiao Cao's assistants. Amongst all the girls, their powers were only slightly inferior to Hua Yu and Xiao Cao. Ling Ling's sword skill was a fencing named flower fencing. It was a dueling sword skill from the royals in Western God's domain. Unlike Hua Yu's holy crossed sword, it required high skill to learn it, and was a sword skill suited to aristocratic ladies. Her sword had a round handguard and a slender, long blade. It abandoned its slash ability but increased its stab ability to the limit. Compared to Ling Ling's sword, Mai Lan's sword was much more ordinary. As a civilian, she didn't have the money to buy an expensive, soft sword like Ling Ling's, but was using a standard military sword. Her sword skill also biased towards actual combat, straight and narrow. The 2 girls were having a fierce fight. Ling Ling's sword skill was slightly better. Her soft sword often attacked Mai Lan from unexpected angles. As for Mai Lan, her sword skill had inherited a part of Xiao Cao's combat skill, not very excellent, but also flawless. The dark shadow spider should have died. Under the stage, Hua Yu put the last dark shadow gem in Yunshi's hand. Yes. We found no traces of the spider in the forest, Xiao Cao said in a confident tone. In order to avenge Mai, Xiao Cao and Hua Yu cooperated with each other and cleaned out the whole forest. They had killed almost all the spiders in the forest and had collected over 10 dark shadow gems. Even if there were still a few little spiders in the forest, they wouldn't be a threat anymore. Thank you. Yunshi took the dark shadow gem and pinched it. Ding. The dark gem turned into powder, then was absorbed by Yunshi's maid uniform. Yunshi accidentally found out that the Killing Princess's maid's uniform could absorb these dark shadow gems. When Xiao Cao had handed over the dark shadow gem to him, he had felt that the maid's uniform suddenly had a special desire to swallow it. He naturally understood that the maid's uniform could eat the dark shadow gem to strengthen itself. After feeding all the dark shadow gems to the maid's uniform, Yunshi found that the uniform became more gorgeous. Even the ribbons on the skirt's corner had become glossier. These magic clothes he had inherited from the unknown Killing Princess was eager for these dark-type gems. Mai, your maid's uniform is becoming more beautiful. Xiao Cao looked at Yunshi with her sparkling eyes. After that, Xiao Cao had decided to kill as many dark shadow spiders as she could to collect more dark shadow gems for Yunshi. It's said that the Killing Princess abhorred dark creatures, so the legend is true. Hua Yu stroked the maid's uniform and remembered the legend. Yunshi embarrassedly looked at the 2 girls beside him and the girls who were fighting for his butter bread on the stage. Was it his illusion? Why did he feel that after the dark shadow spider's attack, the girls had become more intimate with him? Mai, can you make more bread? The girls finally let Mumu wear white socks and shoes. She pulled the corner of Yunshi's clothes, looking at him with a pathetic look. Little girls shouldn't eat too much. You will become fat. Yunshi pinched Mumu's mouth and wondered in his heart, Mumu is so thin, why does she eat more than who are you? Judging from their bodies, it should be who are you who needs more nutrition. Chapter 139, Eye of the Storm. Across the forest and a part of the swamp the girls hadn't been before, in the deepest point of the volcano cave, a large spider nest was formed. A dark shadow spider that was about 3 meters long and had 4 eyes, was hanging upside down from a large web, looking at the prey captured by its avatars with a dissatisfied look. Judging from the various sizes of prey, its avatars had done very well. They had even captured a python which was over 17 meters long. The python was one of the top predators that were at the top of the food chain on the island. It never thought that someday whilst sleeping, it would be caught in spider threads and fail to move an inch, and see several small spiders dragging it into a dark cave underground. It had suffered numerous privations along the way. Hiss. With a cruel hiss, the spider's sharp leg stabbed into the python's head, starting to draw its brains and body fluid. After a few seconds, the python had become only a piece of snake skin. In addition to the python's skin, there were also several ferocious beasts' bodies on the large spider web. Most of them were only remains of their skins and furs. After absorbing the python's flesh and blood, the dark shadow spider's body became a little larger. Looking at itself, the spider expressed a resentful look. Yunshi's sword really hurt it. He had not only eliminated its core, the body part that released its supernatural power, but he had also had broken its life element. As a hermaphrodite, it had to abandon its male part and barely let its female part escape into the forest, but it was still hunted by Xiao Cao and Hua Yu. Finally, its female part also sustained a fatal injury. It was forced to split again, into a new body which only had 25% of its original power. It then ran to the most remote area on the island. If it wasn't a void creature and its body was totally different from common animals within White Lotus Sword domain, it would have died under Yunshi's attack. Now, it had only a weak new body and 3 avatars. Its combat power had reduced to 10% of its original power, even after it had eaten almost all the large creatures it could find around the cave. Revenge. Kill. Enemy. Remembering who had made it lose half of its body, the dark shadow spider opened its mouth, screeching as if it had gone mad. Once a dark shadow spider lost its male part, it couldn't produce offspring again. It was doomed to live completely alone after losing its male part. Its hate was irreconcilable. Its angry scream echoed within the cave, around and around, for a long time. The 10th day after White Lotus dropped from the sky, Hua Yu, Xiao Cao, and Yunshi sat together with a serious look. Something is wrong. According to my calculation, rescuers should have come, Hua Yu said, sharing her worry with Xiao Cao and Yunshi. The sword domain should have known that something had happened to White Lotus. 10 days have passed. That was enough time for them to report the accident to the Sky Sword God's domain master. However, we still haven't seen any rescuers. Maybe the situation is worse than we imagined. Yunshi and Xiao Cao looked at each other. They were just civilians. Naturally, they didn't know this. Although they were trapped on the island, but they had the materials from White Lotus and the tropical island was fertile, the pressure of their survival had been reduced after building the temporary camp. The materials they had collected would help them survive on the island for at least 3 months. So, what's the reason that makes the rescuers unable to come here? Yunshi asked. He also felt something was wrong because the seeds told him that Hua and the twin witches' location hadn't changed at all from the beginning. They could fly. Theoretically, they should have found this island by following traces of White Lotus's debris. However, their seeds hadn't moved from the first day they fell from the sky. I have 2 guesses. The first, they sent rescuers but they are all being stopped by that thing. Maybe they are fighting in the sky as we speak. Speaking about that thing, Hua Yu shook her head. If that was the truth, they shouldn't expect any rescue. After all, an 8th-ranked monster was far beyond ordinary people's range. The rescuers wouldn't have any chance to defeat it. Why did such a monster appear in White Lotus Sword domain? It's too strange. The second guess is that we are not at our original location. Maybe this island is far away from the place where we encountered the monster. You lifted her second finger. This was her main guess. According to the position of the sunset and the sea breeze's direction of movement, you calculated and drew an inconceivable conclusion. This island wasn't on White Lotus's airline, but at a place that was 10,000 kilometers away. In the whole of White Lotus Sword Domain, none of the noble families had been to this place, and no one knew what was in this place, as if it was a natural forbidden area since the dawn of White Lotus Sword Domain. In legends, there were countless terrible dark currents in the sky and in the sea in this area, and anytime and anywhere, this area would have devastating storms. Even if it was a floating ship like White Lotus, once it was caught in any of the storms, it wouldn't have any chance to fly away. This corresponded to the tropical storm happened 10 days ago. You remembered that when the storm appeared, the sky and earth were covered with darkness. She remembered her fear when she saw the storm sweep through the sky. Even a hero-ranked person wouldn't be able to do anything in the face of such a terrible natural disaster. If the storm hadn't suddenly disappeared just like it had suddenly emerged, she couldn't imagine what a dire situation the girls on the island would have faced. Storm Sea. Probably this is where we are. This island should be in the middle of the Storm Sea, you said and sketched a map on the ground. It was a weird map which looked like a giant monster's single eye. From generation to generation, the noble families of White Lotus Sword Domain always warned their descendants not to come to this area, Eye of the Storm. Chapter 140, The Tale of the Storm. Eye of the Storm. How can it be possible? Yun Shi and Xiao Cao wore a surprised look after they heard that taboo name. The Demon's Sea. The abyss in hell. The place no one returns from. It was the most mysterious area in the middle of White Lotus Sword Domain. Even ordinary people had also heard its existence. Eye of the Storm. It was said that if you looked down from the sky, only this area was covered in darkness. It was an area of the sea that was covered by countless storms. Many hero-ranked beings had tried to explore this area of the sea in the past, but most of them had lost their way before they had ventured deep into this area. This area had swallowed a lot of people's lives. Many people believed that there was a terrible monster living within this area and that mortals should never come to this area. This was the most frightening forbidden area in the whole White Lotus Sword Domain. Even the ship, White Lotus, also specifically kept a distance from this area in the past, because no one could predict when the overwhelming black storm would come. No one can return from the Eye of the Storm, was an old saying spread within White Lotus Sword Domain. It accurately described the weird area's properties. Were they in that legendary forbidden area? Remember the hero-ranked adventure team I talked about before? They were eliminated within the surrounding region of Eye of the Storm. Unfortunately, we have gone deeper than they did, probably in the middle area. You didn't want to acknowledge it, but that was the most likely truth. After all, who would think that White Lotus would fly off the airline route and crash in the most dangerous area in the whole Sword Domain? This was a real dead zone that may have indescribable monsters. Maybe the monster who could even swallow the hero-ranked adventure team was on this seemingly common island. In legends, White Lotus's secret treasure is in the Eye of the Storm, you murmured. She remembered an unsubstantiated old tale. White Lotus Sword Domain was just a common lower-level sword domain, but it had a rare secret treasure. No one knew what the secret treasure was. Someone said that it was a matchless weapon, another said that it was a supreme sword skill, and yet another said that it was a flag that could dominate all beings. The only thing that could be confirmed was that the secret treasure did exist, because there was a trace of the secret treasure's shadow in Sword Palace. It was said that only when the Sword Domain was in danger, would the master of White Lotus Sword Domain use it. As for what the real secret treasure was, no one knew. People only knew that once upon a long time, when Sky Sword God's domain was just born in the void, the secret treasure had appeared in White Lotus Sword Domain. After it released its earth-shaking power, it disappeared with not the least trace to be found. It was said that someone realized the rules of the world after seeing the secret treasure's shadow in Sword Palace, and finally became a Sky Sword. It was said that when the Sky Sword was still immortal, he was born in White Lotus Sword Domain and left his legacy in the Sword Domain. He was Yun Hai. Before he became a sky sword, people called him Yun Hai, the sword master. He was the only sky sword who was born in a lower-level sword domain. Due to this, every time Sword Palace began to organize their entrance test, there were always a lot of geniuses across the Star Bridge, coming to take part in their test from various sword domains. Their goal was the secret treasure's shadow in Sword Palace. At the same time, every few years, some hero-ranked people would form a team to explore the most terrible forbidden area in White Lotus Sword Domain, the Eye of the Storm. Their goal was very specific: come to search for the legendary secret treasure, because all the other areas in White Lotus Sword Domain had been searched. Only the Eye of the Storm hadn't been thoroughly searched. Year in and year out, one group after another came to the Eye of the Storm, but most of them couldn't even get through the surrounding region. A few people entered the inner area, but none of them returned. Theoretically, legend-ranked beings couldn't enter White Lotus Sword Domain unless they wanted to destroy it. In that case, the strongest person that could go to explore the Eye of the Storm was still at the hero rank. After many hero-ranked adventure team were eliminated in the Eye of the Storm, almost no one dared to challenge this dead zone again. The Eye of the Storm was the only forbidden area in White Lotus Sword Domain. If this island is in the deepest area of the Eye of the Storm, unless the Master of Sky Sword God's domain comes to change the Sword Domain's rules to allow legend-ranked people to enter this area, we'd better give up to waiting for rescue. Who are you? Analyzed with a depressed look. She felt too hopeless, so she only told Yun Shi and Xiao Cao this cruel news. Are you sure that we are in the Eye of the Storm? Yun Shi took a deep breath. His eyes didn't look depressed, but became more bright. Yes, Hua Yu looked at Mai and was enchanted with his determined look. What a pair of beautiful eyes. In her black pupils, it was comforting enthusiasm and confidence, as if being trapped in the Eye of the Storm was just a miniature disaster in her eyes. Even though she was facing the Eye of the Storm, the dead zone which had swallowed one hero-ranked being after another, her eyes were still saying that she would never give up. In that case, I think that we should make a long-term plan. Yun Shi had to prepare for their future after knowing what cruel situations they would be facing. Of course he wouldn't give up, nor did he feel desperate. Compared to be hunted by the White Holy Dragon sent by his 4 Overlord ex-girlfriends, what was the Eye of the Storm? It was nothing. If he couldn't even escape from this place, how would he escape from his ex-girlfriends and their apostles? He must become stronger and stronger, since it was very likely that the terrible monster who could even eliminate a hero-ranked adventure team was on the island. Then he would get touch with it in his next star trial. In his next star trial, he would find out what the most frightening thing in the Eye of the Storm was and face it. Chapter 141, Mumu's expectation. The third star trial didn't start as soon as Yun Shi had expected. The girls had been living on the island for half a month from when they fell down from the sky. As Hua Yu had expected, no rescuers came. Even if it was the White Lotus Sword Domain Master, he wouldn't dare enter the Eye of the Storm, not to mention others. Maybe they were the first visitors setting their feet on the tropical island. Maya, why hasn't the trial started? Yun Shi had waited for half a month and was well prepared every night. However, he still didn't see any signs of the trial starting. Probably because the star trial this time involved too many strong beings. As the star's prolocutor, Yun Shi's exclusive star elf Maya had a special premonition. This time, the star trial wouldn't be some niche like the previous 2 trials. The first trial, in the Dark Forest, and the second trial in the Tall Tower, weren't at the same level as the next trial. They were in the middle of the Eye of the Storm, the dead zone which may have a frightening monster that could even eliminate a hero-ranked team. No one knew exactly how many monsters were in the Eye of the Storm. If so, I'm really behind the 8 ball. Yun Shi forced a smile. No one could know beforehand how terrifying the star trial could be. If Maya was right, then he would encounter monsters from the Eye of the Storm Island, and the intruders from the void. It would be a nearly impossible task for him. How many times would he die in this trial? 1,000 times, 2,000 times, or more? But he had to face it, because only the deepest despair would help him understand the value of life and freedom, so that he could vitalize his potential. At the very least, he was the only person who had a chance to save everyone on the island. At least, I must learn to master my sky-flying sword to the extent that I can face true hero-ranked existences. This was a goal Yunshi made for himself. No matter how many times he would die, he must accomplish it. Can you look for my papa with me? As Yunshi swore that he must become strong to protect the girls, he heard Mumu's sweet voice. Mumu, are you still looking for your father? Yunshi took a breath, looking at Mumu running towards him. They had waited too long time. Even though Hua Yu hadn't told them the truth, the girls still gradually became depressed. At this time, Mumu became their favorite delight as she was still carefree and optimistic. Yunshi wondered how her mom raised her. She was just like a blank sheet when she encountered many common-sense situations of life. She didn't even know how to find her way in the wild, and often lost her way carelessly in the forest. I'm not a direction idiot. There were just too many trees. Mumu insisted that she wasn't a direction idiot, even though it had become a daily task for Yunshi to look for Mumu. Incidentally, the several squirrels who harassed Mumu in the past had become familiar with her. They often followed her running in the forest, and that was one of the reasons why Mumu often lost her way in the forest. Mumu's mom must be a beauty judging from Mumu's appearance. Why would she agree to let Mumu look for her father alone? Her confused daughter couldn't even find the way by herself. Mumu, your papa isn't in the forest. At least, he can't be on this island. This is a desert island. Yunshi stroked Mumu's head and persuaded her. But Papa and Mema met each other and fell in love on an island. Mumu raised her head, looking at Yunshi seriously. So, Mumu thinks that it's very likely that Papa is on this island. I just haven't found him yet. Well, the possibility. I can't say that it's zero, Yunshi whispered, finally surrendering to Mumu's innocent eyes. That man. The man who abandoned his cute daughter and virtuous wife. Come and bring your daughter back. If no one looked after Mumu, she was very likely to be kidnapped by strange men. Can you be my papa's bride? If so, I can call you Mama. Mumu suddenly said something flabbergasting as she looked at Yunshi. No, impossible. No way. Yunshi felt his back cold. It was really a bad joke. Mama said that Papa was too amorous and irresolute. As a result, he faced a nice boat. Mumu said, then asked Yunshi in confusion, what are the meanings of amorous and nice boat? Oh, so that's what happened. The man finally paid for what he did. Yunshi quickly shook his head. This wasn't something that children should know. He didn't want to expose the ugly adult world to her. That should be your mom's joke. Your mother must like your father a lot. Mama said that she must be the woman who liked Papa best. To this point, she won't give up or concede to anyone. No matter how many years pass and how many rivals she has to defeat, she will be Papa's only lover. As long as he is still alive, she will pay any price to find him. What a persistent woman. However, it was also a manifestation of love. To Yunshi, who couldn't stay with his first love, he also longed for such a pure, persistent love. How would any boy not be that pure in front of his first love? Suddenly, Yunshi started to worry about Hua. What was she doing now? There are too many of them. If I can't get rid of them and find little she as fast as I can, he will be in danger. Hua wiped her sweat away. The situation around her was becoming worse and worse. Compared to the first battlefield, the situation now was developing towards the worst direction. The eye of the storm. She shouldn't have come here at this time. Nice boat is a meme spawning from the image board 4chan from the cancellation of the regular broadcasting of the anime school days in Japan. The program was then replaced with relaxing images of scenery and classical music. A boat was pictured, and someone commented nice boat. Chapter 142, The Monster Walking Through the Moist Tropical Jungle. Yunshi curiously looked at Mumu bouncing and vivacious like a bunny. Looking at her from her back, the strange headwear on Mumu's head looked like a pair of cute long rabbit ears. Mumu, who made your headwear? It was Papa. It was Papa's gift. Mama always told me that Papa was a great man. He can do many things that no one else can do. He knows how to dig out unusual meaning from any trifle. So, Mumu's papa is a very, very, very great man. Mumu opened her arms, trying her best to describe her papa, the man she hadn't even seen once. So, what was his job? She felt confused hearing Mumu's words. What kind of person was Mumu's father? He abandoned his wife and daughter, but they still loved him and never complained about him. From Mumu's words, she felt that her father was an amorous, unreliable man, but Mumu still thought that he was a great man. Papa knew how to make beautiful things. He had created a cute doll that could act like a living human. He had written an old long poem, which recorded the truth and future of the world. He had created a gem that was as beautiful as the sun and as mysterious as the moon. Even the gods contended with each other for his gem. Anyway, Mumu likes him best. He is the greatest father in the world. Is that so? According to Mumu's words, she imagined her father's appearance in his mind. He should be a man about 30 or 40 years old and was unfettered. Maybe he was an innocent, unworldly artist. Since he could even enchant Mumu's mother, who must be a great beauty, his artistic talent must be very high and unique. He knew how to write poems, make gems and dolls, and his artworks were popular among the upper classes. Because he was too absorbed in his artist creations, he didn't pay too much attention to his emotional life, and his daily life was also a complete mess. After Mumu's mother conceived and had Mumu, he didn't want to undertake family responsibility, so he ran away without leaving a message. And it seemed that he had also had relationships with other women. Sigh. Were artists all irresponsible like him? Mumu is looking forward to meeting you. She even came to look for you alone. Since you have had a child, why don't you return home and enjoy the happiness of a family union? A child like Mumu will be very poor if her father can't stay with her. However, it was impracticable to look for Mumu's father on the island. As an artist, he probably had run to the high society in Western God's domain. I hope you can find your father. She walked to Mumu, staying on the summit of the volcano together with her. He looked around the island. Suddenly, he felt something wrong. Was it due to the atmosphere or the island's shape? She couldn't accurately describe his weird feeling. Every time, when he stood at this place and overlooked the island, he always had this feeling, as if he subconsciously noticed something wrong in his sight. His instinct had discovered it, but his mind still hadn't discerned it. The island, is something wrong? She murmured unconsciously. Of course. Because this is an eye. Mumu answered naturally. Eye. Mumu's words made she see the light. He finally noticed it. The island was too flat, especially the coastline. There were no reefs which all natural islands should have. The island's shape looked like a narrow eye. The highest volcano he was standing on was the center of the eye, and the volcanoes around formed the pupil together with it. Could it be? The truth of the island was. Looking at the ground under his feet, she felt creeped out. If the whole island was an eye of a massive monster, then how big was the monster? Could it be bigger than the white holy dragon who was 100 kilometers long? The secret treasure in White Lotus Sword Domain. Can it be? She had a crazy guess in his mind, but he quickly shook his head. He shouldn't speak it out. He wouldn't expose the truth to others. The island under their feet was just a part of a creature. That was too creepy. If the creature woke up, then none of the girls on the island would survive. Why? White Lotus Sword Domain was just a lower lever sword domain. Why was there a sleeping super monster? She finally understood why the star trial hadn't started. It must be a giant project to drag the sleeping monster into the star's dream. She could think of no way to defeat the sleeping monster in the star trial. It had nothing to do with his will or courage. It would be just as desperate as using an egg to break a stone, when the stone was a diamond that was 1,000,000 times larger than the egg. I saw it when I fell from the sky. This is its eye, that is its tail, and that is its heart. Mumu waved her hand, pointing out the big secret hiding in the eye of the storm. It's a very, very big guy. It seems that it had slept for a very, very long time. Maybe the storms in this area are its dreams. Did she see it? Had she also found out the truth about the eye of the storm? She looked at Mumu in surprise. When Mumu fell from the sky, She had found the weird part of the sea area. "Who are you?" was right. There was really a frightening monster in the eye of the storm. "Who are you?" just didn't expect that the monster was actually this massive. They were standing on the monster's eye. Chapter 143, Transformation of the Stars. 1. After finding out the desperate truth, Yunshi was uneasy for several days. After all, the truth that the girls and he were on the eye of an incredibly large monster was too appalling. Only Mumu was still carefree, which made Yunshi feel really envious. At the same time, some changes, although ordinary people hadn't noticed them, were happening. Every night, the girls on the island could see the stars in the sky becoming brighter and brighter, and the number of stars in the sky were also increasing. Normally, unless one was an astronomer, it would be hard to discern the stars save for the famous stars. Most of the stars were lifeless. Only the stars that could be intelligent species habitats had the probability to form an embryonic form as a new god's domain. Sky Sword God's Domain was a large god's domain located in the eastern Star River. It was formed by countless sword domains, including thousands of stars. Every sword domain had its own sword palace. Sky Sword God's Domain had hundreds of lower-level sword domains. Most of them, including White Lotus Sword Domain, Flying Swallow Sword Domain, and Stygian Sword Domain, took sword as their names. The middle-level sword domains were more complex. Some sword domains were named after famous swords such as Dragon Abyss, Shenyuan, and Sky River, but there were also dozens of sword domains that used country names such as Da Liang, Da Jin, and Da Ming. As for Sky Sword God's Domain's greatest honor, top-level sword domains, there were only 4, Da Xia, Da Ju, Da Han, and Da Tang. Da Xia Sword Domain, which was known for its oldest artifact, was the capital of all the sword domains. Da Ju Sword Domain, Da Han Sword Domain, and Da Tang Sword Domain had the largest population and were known as the 3 holy sword domains. Most of Sky Sword were born in the 3 sword domains. The rank of a sword domain wasn't immutable. White Lotus Sword Domain was a lower-level sword domain, but it had once been a middle-level sword domain. Most of the noble families in White Lotus Sword Domain had been founded during that period of time. All thanks to the only Sky Sword in the history of White Lotus Sword Domain, Yun Hai, White Lotus Sword Domain managed to upgrade to become a middle-level sword domain at that time. He forged an artifact, the symbol of middle-level sword domain, for White Lotus Sword Domain, and left his legacy here. After doing that, he left White Lotus Sword Domain and became a Sky Sword. Benefit from Yun Hai the Swordmaster's efforts, his birthplace finally had the honor to be regarded as a middle-level sword domain, even though both its population and territorial area didn't meet the requirements. After Yun Hai's departure, no new legend-ranked person had been born in White Lotus Sword Domain. The sword domain gradually descended to become a lower-level sword domain again. Even so, White Lotus Sword Domain still attracted many geniuses from other sword domains. Every year, when Sword Palace's entrance test began, many geniuses came to this sword domain to try their luck. They wanted to repeat Yun Hai's experience and obtain his legacy. Anyway, all the sword palaces in the whole Sky Sword God's Domain were an integral whole. Unfortunately, so many years had passed, no one had comprehended what Yun Hai saw and understood in Sword Palace. The secret treasure of White Lotus was still a mysterious, alluring tale. The traces of stars couldn't be changed easily. Even with the destruction of a star, the end of the world to the living beings on it was just a small wave in the vast star sea. The stars in the star sea always followed certain rules, to be a part of the memories of the river of time, and to be a part of the entire universe. However, several days ago, some people suddenly discovered that the stars in Eastern God's Domain, especially in Sky Sword God's Domain, were changing in an incomprehensible way. Many people thought that they were mistaken when they saw the first change. There were various tools that had observed the change, such as a star observation tower on a hill, a large magic circle on the mountains, and a matrix formed by countless mirrors in a desert. There was even an all-seeing eye, which was transformed from a planetoid and wouldn't even waste its computing power to observe small sword domains. They had all observed and recorded the change. The data they recorded was so inconceivable that it could even make their observers have a heart attack. Looking at the data, many people's world outlook crashed. It's impossible. Some people were hysteric. Gosh, there must be something wrong with my eyes. Tell me, this is not true. This is not true. Whether it was a saint in Western God's domain, or an astrologer in Eastern God's domain, when they observed the absurd change, they went mad. Soon afterwards, several gods' domains got into a mess. Most of the people who could divine via astrology or calculate destiny were in the leading class of their gods' domains. After they commanded, the whole god's domain had to follow their orders. 24 hours passed, they had assembled more observation tools. Hero-ranked people, even legend-ranked people were all working for this. The star saints and astrologers who dedicated themselves to astronomy all fell into a frenzy. They shouted unintelligible terms and acted very excited as if they were children who just discovered a new toy. All the observation tools were aiming at the same location. At that star region, the stars' orbits were breaking. On the second day, they observed the same phenomenon. No matter whether they looked like old men or young boys, these godlike powerful beings were all staring at that star region as if they were possessed. The stars' orbits shouldn't change within such a short time. They should never change within 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years. Their life cycle was beyond mortals' imagination, as long as the universe itself. However, they witnessed it with their own eyes now. They observed that the never-changing star orbits were changing. Many people's world outlook was shaken. They even started to wonder if they mistook the nature of the world in their past lives. Chapter 144, Transformation of the Stars, 2. On the second day, after their world outlook was shocked again, they built more observation tools and used a wider variety of monitoring magic to observe this star region. Some people had even stepped over the star bridge, traveling to Sky Sword God's domain day and night in order to observe the abnormal phenomena with a closer look. The astrologers in Eastern God's domain had already gathered around Sky Sword God's domain to observe the rare astronomical spectacle at the closest place. Since the beginning of the history of Eastern God's domain, it was the first time that so many astrologers had gathered together. On the third day, finally the visitors from Western God's domain had reached Sky Sword God's domain. After giving a previous notice to their fraternities in Eastern God's domain, they quickly arrived at some remote corners and started to build their observation tools. That night, they witnessed the mysterious, beautiful scene again. Taking Sky Sword God's domain as the center, countless stars shone and cheered, converging together, forming a bright star sea around Sky Sword God's domain. Some stars that had nearly reached the end of their lives even started to self-destruct of their own initiative, turning into bright lights. The stars are killing themselves. Why? 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 The stars' orbits are changing. So harmonious. So beautiful. The stars are cheering. People exclaimed whilst looking at the stars self-destructing. They didn't even dare to breathe when they saw any star's orbit changing. They shouted and wrangled, then quickly calmed down, waiting for the next change. Only the star saints and astrologers knew the meaning of the change. It exposed a part of the world's nature, and it showed a corner of the eternal truth of the universe. It must be God's heartbeat. A believer kissed his cross and praised the God of light. No. It's the universe's heartbeat. Other people retorted him. Compared to gods, who were only omnipotent in their gods' domains, what was happening now was greater and contained more meanings. Although they knew the stars very well and some of them were so strong that they could even destroy stars as easily as blowing off dust, none of them knew why this fantastic scene was happening in this star region. They didn't know how to explain what was happening in front of them. No theory or rule could explain it. The knowledge they had learned and found in the past wouldn't be any more useful than waste paper in front of this miracle. From 3 days ago, since the stars began to change, all the theories and rules in the past would definitely be rewritten in the future. It didn't matter. They had enough time to record and calculate the meaning of the changes. To them, when they devoted themselves to study the stars, 1,000 years was as short as blinking one of their eyes. Every achievement was worth being written into the annals of history. Undoubtedly, the change of the stars was a phenomena that was worth being written into the annals of history. It would be researched by countless people for thousands of years. All of them hoped that the fantastic phenomena would continue for as long as possible, so that they would have more time to record it. They believed that it was a gift from the great stars. Maya, is it about time? Yunshi raised his head, gazing at the starry sky. He felt that more and more star wills were gathering around him. It seemed that this time, the star trial would really be unusual. How many people did the stars want to drag in? The stars have finished writing rules. Be careful, Master. This time, the dream will be infinitely approaching to the real world. The more creatures in the trial world, the more benefits you can obtain. After all, the stars love you. Maya sat on Yunshi's shoulder, looking at the starry sky together with him. But Master, you must remember to hide your true identity even in the star trial. The apostle will also appear in your trial. Yunshi forced a smile. The apostle was an 8th-ranked white holy dragon. Oh stars, why would you drag it into my star trial? Your love is really difficult to stand. I will become strong. Yunshi stretched out his hand, opening his 5 fingers, then held his fist. Someday, I will be strong enough to defeat the apostle. Yes, this is it. Master, as long as you can become stronger and stronger, you can finally solve all your problems. At that time, you don't even need to worry about your 4 ex-girlfriends. Maya had confidence in her master, because her master was the greatest man in the world, the beloved star child. With the stars' help, nothing could stop her master. Moreover, her master was trying to become strong. On the 4th day, the 5th day, the 6th day. In the eyes of the star saints and astrologers, the stars' change finally reached an end. A transparent ring spread in the star sea, performing a song of stars. On the 7th day, 7 o'clock, Yunshi's mouth was covered by his star elf's lips again. Above the girls' fort, countless starlight turned into fragments floating in the air, shining down on the eye of the storm, which was always covered with some weird power. Even the weird power couldn't stop these star fragments. Why? Is Papa in the neighborhood? Mumu looked at the star fragments with curiosity. She stretched out her small hands, catching several fragments. At that moment, the world's time stopped. No, time didn't stop. It was because this other world was accelerating incredibly. The stars forced the time velocity in the world it created to accelerate. In order to perform this, hundreds of stars self-destructed into star fragments, raising a small wave in the river of time. Language and cognition, behavior and appearance, soul and body. The stars created a complete world for their beloved child. They even reversed the rules between life and death to create an immortal spark. This was the stars' blessing given to Yunshi, the truth about the transformation of the stars. Chapter 145, Water God's World. Under the starry sky, many people were forced to fall into a deep sleep. Star fragments dropped to the ground, dragging the beings on the eye of the storm into the dream, including the beings who hadn't slept or didn't have the physiological function of sleep. This star trial was different from the previous 2 star trails. More precisely, the previous 2 trials were just used to help Yunshi get acquainted with the star trial. It wasn't just a corner of a vast nightmare world, or that had only involved the beings Yunshi was around at that time. This time, the dream the stars created for Yunshi was a real world. For this star trial, hundreds of stars burned themselves of their own initiative. They turned into star fragments, floating in the whole sky sword God's domain. Most of them were just beautiful stardust, only the fragments in the eye of the storm contained the essence of stars. Everything was for one person, their beloved star child, Yunshi. Crack, crack. Yunshi heard the familiar sound. It was from the burning bonfire. Starting again. After 21 days, the star trial started again. This time, how hard would it be? The stars even dragged the 8th-ranked apostle, the white holy dragon, into Yunshi's star trial. Did they want Yunshi to challenge the dragon now? The dragon could kill him as easily as blowing off dust. Yunshi hoped that he could obtain more good seeds this time. They had better be as good as Huahua's seed that could be absorbed by him perfectly and immediately. Yunshi had prepared to die thousands of times in this trial. He opened his eyes. Gee! The scene in front of him was out of his expectation. There was no endless dark forest, nor lifeless old stone towers. The sun was shining brightly. Scarlet clouds floated in the distant sky, the sunlight dyeing them golden, as if they were shy girls that were pulling up their socks. Behind the gold-red clouds, the sun exposed itself. The sunlight shone on the whole world, covering a layer of gold clothes on everything on the ground. Endless white mists rose from the ground, making the world look like a heaven. Under such an environment, the bonfire in front of Yoon, she looked so inconsistent with the world. Weapon system, spoil container, forge system. After opening the 3 menus, Yoon she finally confirmed that he was in the star trial and not a simple dream with a bonfire. Crane Wing's twin swords were more handy in the trial world. Perhaps it was because Yoon she had obtained their entities in the real world. Looking at Crane Wing's twin sword, Yoon she obtained more information. Crane Wing's twin sword, forged by Ouyz the godly craftsman. After thousands of years, they have become a pair of artifacts. Property 1. The higher the holder's talent is, the more powerful the twin swords will be. Property 2. Flying crane wings. The twin swords were made of top-class materials. Even a mortal can use it to perform the sword skill flying sword. Property 3. Sword souls. After thousands of years, 2 sword souls were finally born in the twin swords. Only the chosen swordsman can hear their voices and be their master. Additional property. The twin swords can only be used by male. Your current state have been accepted by the sword souls. You can use them to perform hero-ranked attacks. At the same time, the stars system told him this trial world's information and his final mission. The trial world's name, Water God's Fantasy Island. The world's background, an old fantastical creature named Water God is sleeping under the island. Every 100 years, it will wake up and look for its bride. A lot of Water God's believers have betrayed their god because a sky sword has reached the island and is going to slaughter the god. Your final mission, paired choice. First option, join Water God's camp, help Water God find its bride, and you will receive Water God's reward. Second option, join human camp, become the sky sword's partner to slaughter the god, and you will obtain the sky sword's reward. Optional side mission 1, girl fights evil dragon. A brave girl is looking for an evil dragon. You can choose this side mission after you join human camp. Optional side mission 2, the Apostle's Call. A great apostle has reached this world. Swear your loyalty to her and become a dragon god subordinate. You can choose this side mission after you join Water God's camp. Optional side mission 3, the Truth of the Mist. The people on the island are living in a world that is surrounded by endless mist. Go find the secret and expose the truth. Optional side mission 4, to love, Starchild. Life is too short, just enjoy it. Propose to as many girls as possible. After obtaining their marriage contracts, you can have the girl's power. You are never alone. Secret mission? It will be exposed after you finish 3 side missions. No. Even though Yoon she had known that the trial wouldn't be easy, but he still gasped after seeing the final mission. He had to defeat the fantastical creature, Water God, if he chooses to join the human camp. Or he has to defeat a sky sword, one of the strongest people in the whole sky sword god's domain, if he chooses to join Water God's camp. Whatever he chooses, he has to defeat a legend-ranked presence. As for these side missions, Yoon she was speechless. He knew the first side mission, but what the hell were the other 3 missions? Especially the 4th side mission, to love, Starchild. Is it really not a joke? Propose to as many girls as possible to obtain their power. Are the stars encouraging him to be a playboy? Why does this star trial seem so different from the usual? Okay. I will choose the human camp and find Hua as quickly as I can. Yoon she decisively made this decision in a second. He had once done the side mission girl fights evil dragon. Perhaps this was the only mission he was familiar with in the trial world. Hua, I will see you soon. With this hope in his heart, Yoon she left the bonfire. Then, he saw a giant eye. Chapter 146, Mask. The eye appeared without warning. Yoon she was sure that this place had nothing a second ago, but after he had left the bonfire, the eye had instantly emerged. The eye looked at Yun Shi and his twin swords with curiosity and confusion. Who are you? Where are you from? Where will you go? Why are you here? Yun Shi nervously gazed at the giant eye. Sweat dripped from his face. It wasn't a real eye, but formed by countless mist crystals. Tiny crystals of mist reflected colorful lights in the sun, as fantastic as if a dream. The eye's pupil was an engaging dark blue, looking like a very profound gem. It could control the mist in the air so easily. Since the trial world was named Water God's Fantasy Island, Yun Shi had already guessed what the eye in front of him was. Water God. It was the fantastic creature sleeping under the island, the strongest, godlike creature in this trial world. What the hell? He had just left the bonfire and then immediately saw the ultimate boss of the world. Yun Shi felt desperate. What should he do now? It wasn't even hell mode. It was the nobody survives mode he was facing. Why don't I see my mark in your body? You don't belong to this world. Fortunately, even though it was the world's ultimate boss, Water God looked it was still half awake and half asleep. Its voice sounded deep. The mist crystals resonated, shaking both Yun Shi's body and heart. Undoubtedly, it was a legend-ranked creature that wouldn't be inferior to the White Holy Dragon. Its existence itself was enough to change this world's rules. It was like lightning, a storm, a volcano. As a legend-ranked being, it was as miraculous as God. Water God was undoubtedly an ancient creature that was as strong as a god. It was impossible to defeat such a godlike creature. The difference between them was as large as the difference between a drop of water and an entire ocean. Did he still have a chance? Yun Shi let out a sigh of relief after he realized that Water God wasn't going to kill him directly. Fortunately, he wouldn't be killed countless times immediately after he left the bonfire. Even though he could revive in the fire, he didn't want to fight against the ancient creature, Water God. The gap between the nature of their lives was too wide. It would be meaningless to repeat such combat. What's your name? Water God gazed at Yun Shi with no hostility. On the contrary, Yun Shi felt kindness from its tone. Yun Shi almost told it his true name. Fortunately, he remembered Maya's warning at the last second. Yun Hai. Finally, Yun Shi said a common name in White Lotus Sword Domain. Yun Hai the Swordmaster was the whole White Lotus Sword Domain's pride. He had once helped White Lotus Sword Domain promote to become a middle-level sword domain, and was one of the founders of White Lotus Sword Palace and a Sky Sword. People in White Lotus Sword Domain often named their children Yun Hai, hoping that their children would be as great as Yun Hai the Swordmaster. Yun Hai. What a memorable name, Water God blinked. Yun Shi suddenly realized that as an ancient creature, Water God must have lived a long life. If Water God's true identity was the monster sleeping in the eye of the storm, then it may really have met Yun Hai the Swordmaster in the past. Besides, the stars told him specifically that a sky sword would appear in his star trial. Would it be Yun Hai? So, you are my old friend's descendant. No wonder that I feel a sense of familiarity from you. Just in time, after a month, my world will hold a ceremony. You can be my apostle. I hope that you can help me find the most beautiful and excellent bride for me. Water God's eye turned into a stream of transparent crystals and fell to Yun Shi. Yun Shi heard a series of system beeps. You have chosen your camp. You have become Water God's apostle. Once you finish choosing your camp, you can't change or betray your camp. Please play as Water God's apostle in this world. The world line has been changed. Please help Water God find the most beautiful bride to complete its wish. Yun Shi didn't expect that his lie about his true identity directly made him leave the human camp and become the Water God's apostle. What did this mean? It meant that he could never join the human camp to fight against this world's boss together with Hua Hua, the twin witches, Hua Yu and Xiao Cao. Why? Why can't I challenge the world's strongest boss together with the others? Why did the world's ultimate boss directly find me and select me to become its subordinate? I have lived a long, long life. To be honest, I'm tired. As this world's god, I desire change, even if it means new enemies. My old friend's descendant, can you help me look around the world with your eyes? I want to see what will be changed in this new century. The world may have boundless beauties, but only one love is needed in my life. As a god, I'm looking for a person who can span time and space, becoming my lover." Countless mist crystals converged on Yunshi's face, finally turning into a silver mask, covering Yunshi's face. "Hence, I give you my mask. You will become my eyes, my ears, my sword, to look for my bride." With 4 white sharp horns projecting upright from the mask looked like some dragon's mark. "Remember, you have my mask, so you can use my power. You will become the utter Weramono." 1. The system beep echoed in Yunshi's mind again. "You have been recognized by Water God. You have obtained Water God's mask. After you wear the mask, you will obtain the fake power of King." 1. Utter Weramono, the person who is eulogized in poems and songs. Chapter 147. Fake. After Water God's eye disappeared, Yunshi walked to the stream, looking at his reflection in the water in confusion. The silver mask perfectly covered his face, and only his eyes and mouth were exposed. No one would know Yunshi's true appearance through the mask. 4 silver horns stood on his forehead with old, mysterious rune words engraved on them. Yunshi had just worn the mask, but it already made him look 10 years older. He looked like a middle-aged adult, revealing traces of the passing of life on his appearance. The most amazing thing was that Yunshi couldn't feel the existence of the mask, as if it was a natural part of his body. "What is it?" Yunshi touched the silver mask, feeling it was cold and smooth. Yunshi's fingertip caressed the edge of the mask. He could clearly feel the power inside it, a power that was far beyond his imagination. The star system automatically showed the mask's information. Water God's mask, an artifact that contains God's power. Special Property 1, Water God's blessing. It is a crystal transformed from a sleeping fantastic creature's blood, having incredible power. Special Property 2, Fake mask. The person who wears the mask will become Water God's apostle. Hidden Property. The mask contains some secret. You need to discover it by yourself. God's artifact. Looking at his own reflection in the water, Yunshi felt something unusual from the description. Was this middle-aged man really him? Why did he see wisdom and vicissitudes in his own eyes? It apparently didn't belong to him, but it wasn't fake. He really felt traces of life inside his pupils. He couldn't even recognize himself now. Crane Wing's twin swords, come back. Yunshi put the twin swords back in his weapon system. Now, nothing would expose his true identity. From now on, he was Water God's apostle. This isn't just a joke. Where can I find a bride to satisfy Water God? There isn't even a standard. Yunshi sat down under the tree beside the stream with gloom. Compared to this tough mission, he preferred to fight against the green hippo again, feeling the meaning of his life through blood and death. This world was too different compared to the previous 2 worlds. On the island, he could only see bright sunlight and vibrant forests. Both the world's size and complexity were far beyond the previous 2 dark worlds. No wonder that the stars needed such a long time to create this world. This time, the star trial was too complicated. No, I shouldn't give up now. Since this is a trail world, there must be some method to solve my problem. Yunshi calmly analyzed. First, the 2 camps in this world. Yunshi drew 2 circles on the ground under the tree. The first circle represented Water God's camp, although he only saw Water God's eye and confirmed its existence just now. It seemed that Water God was still sleeping. Only a part of its consciousness had woken up. Therefore, Yunshi could move freely now. It was no doubt that Water God was the strongest ultimate boss in this trial world, and according to what Yunshi knew, its true identity was the monster sleeping in the eye of the storm. The second circle represented the camp which Yunshi had planned to join at first, the human camp. Its leader was a Sky Sword. Yunshi didn't know who the Sky Sword was, but he knew that the Sky Sword was going to slaughter Water God. Sky Sword was the strongest title in Sky Sword God's domain. From the beginning of the history of Sky Sword God's domain, only a dozen people had the honor to obtain this title. Each of them was a legendary hero. Yunshi didn't know who this Sky Sword was, but it would be a matchless swordsman that could even slaughter a god. Hua Hua, White Lotus, Red Lotus, and the Starwings Knights girls undoubtedly belonged to human camp. In this case, he would be their enemy. This was the worst situation Yunshi could imagine. It seemed that it was hard to say which camp was stronger, because both the Sky Sword and Water God were undoubtedly super strong. However, there was a variable. The Apostle, White Holy Dragon. Yunshi drew the third circle on the ground. The third circle was close to the circle represented by Water God's camp, because it was a dragon from his ex-girlfriend's camp. It was very likely to help Water God. Besides, the optional Mission 3, the Apostle's call had clearly told him that the Apostle was naturally biased to Water God's camp. If so, then it would become a huge variable, a counterweight that would finally change the balance between the two camps. As an 8th-ranked creature, once the White Holy Dragon chose to help one camp, then the other camp would be defeated quickly and unquestionably. However, will it really be that simple? Yunshi didn't think so. The stars wouldn't let his trial be so easy. After all, this was the first time that he had to choose a camp, had 4 side missions, and a hidden mission. Besides, Water God didn't play by the rules. It instantly found Yunshi and chose him as its apostle after Yunshi left the bonfire. Everything implied that this wasn't a simple world. The most doubtful point was, why was this world so real? Yunshi uncovered the soil beside the stream. Several earthworms wriggled and slowly moved away from Yunshi's hands. Several small crabs were scared and immediately escaped into the stream. No, something was wrong. This world was so real that it couldn't be called a dream. This was just one of his star trials. Was it really necessary to create such a perfect world? Chapter 148. Water Mist. The Dark Forest in the newbie trial and the Tall Tower in the formal trial were 2 different worlds, but had the same style, igniting a bonfire in the lifeless, dark world, as if a nightmare had become reality. However, Water God's world was beautiful, bright, and picturesque. Am I really in my star trial? Or I have been transported to another world? Yunshi smelt the soil in his hand in confusion. Even though Maya had told him that this time the trial would be as authentic as the real world, only till he really entered the trial world did he finally understand how real it was. Roar. Yunshi heard a frightening sound. Finally, the enemy comes. The familiar sense of danger made Yunshi return from his pondering. Yes. No matter what this world was, his goal wouldn't change. He must become stronger and stronger, otherwise, he would be caught by his ex-girlfriends and fall into misfortune forever. Let me try this weapon. Yunshi took out his indecomposable, unbreakable, newbie sword, preparing to fight. He must finish the Water God's quest. He must become stronger. Swoosh. Swoosh. Yunshi smelt a frightening scent in the wind. He knew that a huge creature was approaching from a distance. Come on. Yunshi walked to the place where the frightening scent came from. Roar. With an earth-shaking roar, a white tiger that was 10 meters long appeared. Its abnormal red eyes stared at Yunshi, then it instantly pounced at Yunshi. It leapt through dozens of meters. Its large paws broke the wind, even leaving green tracks in the air. It was a kind of super ability. It was a hero-ranked monster. Undoubtedly, it was at the same level as the fiery male dragon. It was a monster that had transcended the limit of flesh and blood. However, Yunshi wasn't as terrified as he had been when he first saw the fiery male dragon. He did feel a bit of a sense of pressure, but held no fear facing the tiger. Was it due to Water God's mask? Yunshi could feel the fantastic power inside the silver mask. A refreshing feeling was released from the mask, comforting Yunshi's heart, making him keep calm even in such a critical situation. Transparent mist surrounded Yunshi, making his skin as flawless as dewdrop. This was a blessing from the Water God, a power from a god. His iron sword was also covered with a veil of mist, becoming sharper and colder. Flying swallow. Yunshi leapt up, facing the giant white tiger with no fear. In the air, Yunshi's body was more nimble than the giant tiger. In an instant, he had attacked the white tiger 16 times, exposing the frightening air combat capability of his flying sword. However, it wasn't as effective as Yunshi had expected. Roar. The white tiger fell to the ground. It trembled and a few bundles of fur fell off. What a sturdy body. Yunshi looked at his iron sword. He had hewn the white tiger 16 times, but hadn't even left a scar on its body. Hiss. The white tiger became fiercer after landing on the ground. Its bloody eyes stared at Yunshi with killing intent. Not bad. Taste my sword. Yunshi knew it was a hero-ranked monster, but it didn't scare him and instead made him feel more excited. It was a pleasurable feeling from the bottom of his heart, as if it was a very comfortable thing to fight against the white tiger. Roar. The white tiger lowered its body. Its body was surrounded with countless green lights. It was the white tiger's supernatural power, Wind Blade. Compared to human beings that had to obtain magic or sword skills through study, hero-ranked creatures could naturally inherit super abilities through their bloodlines. The white tiger not only had almost invulnerable fur, but was also a natural controller of wind. Hiss. Its large paw broke the wind, leaving 3 green traces in the air. Not bad. Yunshi brandished his sword 3 times, dispelling the 3 green traces in the air. He felt it. He felt the difference after he wearing Water God's mask. Super ability. He had a real super ability now, blending in his body and bloodline. Water Mist. This was the name of the super ability he had obtained from Water God's mask. After acquiring this power, Yunshi could fight against hero-ranked beings now. Water God's apostle wasn't just a title. He was really blessed by the Water God. Ice Blade. Yunshi understood naturally how to control the mist to form ice blades in the air. A row of sharp, silver ice blades instantly pierced through the soil, piercing through the white tiger's belly. The first ice blade was only a meter long, but the last ice blade was 3 meters long. If it wasn't the white tiger but a human instead, it would have been cut open. However, the white tiger was stunned for just a few seconds. Just like the flying swallow Yunshi performed before, the ice blades weren't able to break its defense too. Unbelievable. Is this the 3rd rank? Of course, Yunshi was still a mortal, but after wearing Water God's mask, he could see the world through the eyes of hero-ranked beings. He was Water God's apostle, so his hero-ranked super ability was Water Mist. The limitless water mist on the island was like a part of his body. Every time he breathed, he could absorb a lot of water mist into his body, then turn it into shapes he imagined and controlled them to fight. The water blade on his sword. The healing mist on his skin. And the ice blades he controlled just now. He had transcended the limits of his body and naturally knew how to control the power between the sky and the ground. He had temporarily reached hero rank. He was at the 4th rank now. Chapter 149, Familiar Person Ice Blade. Ice Blade. Ice Blade. Yunshi acted like a child who had just obtained a new toy. He played with the fierce white tiger, ignoring that it could kill him 1,000 times over if its paws touched him. Water God's blessing was far beyond Yunshi's imagination. He gradually understood the secrets of hero rank in the battle, especially the ice blade transformed from mist. They seemed to be very good fit for his body, and soon after, they had become the skill he knew best. Ice blade. Burst. Thousands of ice blades exploded at the same time. Countless fragments of ice crystals flew towards the fierce white tiger, interweaving into a vast net in the air. It was a net that could bring death. Trees, rocks, and soil, everything was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the sharp fragments of ice crystal. They were torn to shreds immediately, and soon afterwards, the shreds were torn to dust in the face of more ice crystal fragments, till they turned into imperceptible particles and vanished into the air. Roar. The white tiger was seriously injured. Its 2 paws covered its head, lying on its stomach in front of Yunshi. Who? It acted as if it wasn't a bloodthirsty monster but an aggrieved puppy. Okay, stop pretending. I know you are okay. Yunshi was satisfied with the ice blade's effect, but he knew that they wouldn't damage the white tiger so much. The white tiger acted like it had come to its senses and realized something. Roar. As Yunshi had expected, the white tiger raised its head. Its pupils had turned from red to black. The white tiger carefully walked to Yunshi after realizing that Yunshi wasn't going to attack it. It bent down on its forepaws and licked Yunshi's feet, then rolled on the ground and exposed its belly, showing that it was not hostile anymore. Smart tiger. Yunshi stroked the white tiger's head. He had known that there was something wrong with the white tiger from the beginning. Perhaps it was because of the water god's mask. He vaguely knew about all the living beings on the island. The giant white tiger was a natural king in the forest. It had an invulnerable body and could control the wind. This was water god's world, and naturally, the white tiger was one of water god's subordinates. However, it had suddenly lost its sanity recently and became a bloodthirsty monster. If Yunshi hadn't become water god's apostle and had the hero-ranked ability, Water Mist, probably he would have been eaten by the furious white tiger. Roar! Roar! The white tiger licked Yunshi's face, acting as if it was a puppy. Then, it picked Yunshi's sleeve and dragged him, trying to guide him to some place. Where are you going? Yunshi sensitively felt the white tiger's intention. Roar! Roar! The white tiger wagged its tail and picked up Yunshi to put him on its back, then ran at full speed. Is it a very important place to you? It has something to do with your change? Is there something wrong at that place? Based on his intuition, Yunshi asked the white tiger and got its affirmation. Roar! 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 As a hero-ranked creature, its intelligence wasn't inferior to ordinary humans. Yunshi carefully made out the meaning of its roar. Danger. Blood. Strange person. Yunshi understood. The white tiger encountered a strange person before. They had a tough fight, but there was no winner. Both of them had suffered great losses. The white tiger lost its sanity and the strange person was dying. Strange person. Yunshi guessed that it was an outsider who was involved in his trial world by the stars. However, there was no victor in the strife between the strange person and the white tiger, which meant, probably the person wasn't one of the Starwings Knights girls, nor was it Hua Hua or the twin witches. Was it a passenger from White Lotus? Or? Yunshi rode on the white tiger's back in deep thought. They tramped over a dozen of mountains, finally reaching the white tiger's den. It must have been a fierce fight. The ground looked as if it had experienced a typhoon, covered with countless crushed stones and dozens of melted holes in the ground. A tall man was lying down on the ground in front of the white tiger's den. The blood under his body had dyed the ground around him red. It was apparent that there was two types of blood on the ground. Through his mask, Yunshi could see that one contained fierce blood power and the other one contained a mysterious magical power. Yunshi looked at the man in surprise. The man wasn't a stranger to him, because he was the archer in red in his second star trial, who had stopped Yunshi on the bridge countless times. More than once, his arrows had cut through Yunshi's head and heart. Much more often, the archer just shot him through his hands and feet, stopping him from escaping from the stone soldier's attacks. He had even been killed by the archer's twin double knives once. In the second star trial, the archer in red had almost become a psychological shadow in Yunshi's heart. And judging from the evaluation of the stars, the archer in red did have the highest potential amongst the 4 strongest enemies in Yunshi's second star trial. The 3 childs were no match for him. He was a real genius that had the potential to reach the hero rank. If Yunshi hadn't kissed his childhood sweetheart Hua Hua to raise the complete degree of Hua Hua's seed, Yunshi didn't know how many times he would have been killed by the archer. It looked that the mysterious archer had also become stronger after the trial. After all, he could end the battle between him and the white tiger in a draw now. Yunshi wasn't sure if he could do this if he took off Water God's mask. Chapter 150. The second apostle. He was injured seriously. Yunshi lowered his head and touched the archer in red's back. Blood stained his fingers. His water mist wasn't omnipotent. It could heal wounds but couldn't save a dying person. The archer in red was alive only because he had strong will to live, so that he could persist till this moment. Looking at his deep wounds and the messy ground, Yunshi could barely imagine the violent battle between the archer in red and the white tiger. Roar! The white tiger raised its paw, preparing to kill the strange man who inexplicably came to its den and fought with it. At that time, the white tiger smelt no scent of the familiar humans on Water God's island from the archer in red, so it attacked the archer with no worry. It just didn't expect that both of them would be injured so seriously in the fight. If it hadn't met Yunxi, it would probably be still crazy. If it had hurt the humans on the island who often came to offer it sacrifices, the consequences would be too ghastly to contemplate. After all, as the water god's subordinate, if it slaughtered the god's people, it would definitely be punished by the god. Fortunately, Yunxi saved it from that terrible misfortune. Now, the white tiger only wanted to eat the chief criminal who had made it go berserk. Anyway, it wasn't a human. It's okay to eat the chief criminal, right? No. Little Moo, you can't eat him. You don't need to eat humans to fill your belly, right? Yunxi knocked the white tiger's head and gave it a nickname Little Moo. Okay, Yunxi admitted that he missed Mumu now. Upon remembering that he had joined Water God's camp and had to make enemies with the human camp, Yunxi couldn't stop sighing. Cough. Gah. The archer in red coughed and twitched on the ground, then gradually opened her eyes. Even though her eyes looked blank and dazed, but the will in her eyes still made Yunxi feel surprised. An archer must have an iron will. No matter how serious he is hurt or attacked, he never gives up, and he never steps back. To the things he insisted on, he would fight till the last moment. Even if he died on the battlefield, he wouldn't topple down. If the human will can create miracle, then it must include him. Trace, on, he struggled, trying to release his secret skill. No, I can't die here. I must survive. I can't give up, because I still have a mission to finish. An archer doesn't die with her hands bare. A large amount of mist suddenly surrounded them, forming a familiar shape. Countless ice crystals reflected sunlight, reflecting a deep blue inside his pupil. I didn't expect to see this cursed bloodline again. Answer my question and make your choice. Tell me, who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? Why are you here? The archer in red froze. His body slightly trembled in front of Water God's eye. I'm Yun Q. I come from the distant Western God's domain. I came here for my mission. Yun Q, Skylark, her name was fake, and her identity was fake, but it was necessary. Yun Q was her title in the organization, but it was also the name of one of the strongest people in 10 Leaves Alliance. Yun Q was a woman who got entangled with Yun Hai the Swordmaster, and her most favorite heroine. Haha, Yun Hai, Yun Q, good names. I see. This must be fate. Water gods, I gazed at the archer in red meaningfully. Very well. You made your choice, and I miss this name too. He is Yun Hai and you are Yun Q, then I will let you become my apostle too. Accept my blessing and put on my mask, to satisfy my desire. Countless fragments of ice crystals dropped from the sky, forming a mask in the archer in red's hands. Hundreds of years have passed, I'm eager to see the world's changes, I have longed to marry the most beautiful bride. It was different from Yunxi's mask. It was as red as the archer's clothes, as red as blood. Yun Hai, Yun Q, go. Go look for the most excellent bride for me. At the top of the mask, a sharp red horn pointed upwards. Although the archer's mask had only one horn, but the horn on his mask was 3 times longer than Yunxi's silver horn. After obtaining the red mask, Yun Q's blood started flowing backwards. Not only the blood that stained her clothes, but also the blood on the ground had also flowed backwards into her body. My blood flows on the ground and into the sea, tinting the whole world red. Yun Q touched the mask, then naturally understood how to use the power inside his mask. It was a power named blood. After putting on the mask, she had obtained her hero-ranked ability to control blood. Unlike Yunxi's water mist, Yun Q's mask was biased towards strengthening herself. As long as her head, especially the part she wore the mask on, hadn't been destroyed, she wouldn't be killed. Even if her bones were broken or her heart had been torn up, she could be restored to normal by using her blood. If she went a step further, she could even reform her bones and nerve system, strengthening her physique to an inconceivable extent. The sword is her body and fire is her blood. This was her road, a road named Lonely Hero. The mask had granted her the real hero-ranked power. Undoubtedly, it was a power that belonged to God. Water God, Yun Q raised her head, looking at the Water God's eye in confusion. Why did the good treat her so well? The god should have detected her inapt lie and disguise. She didn't think that her secret skill could cheat a god. Chapter 151. Water gods. People. The world needs to be changed, and you are the people who will bring those changes. So, look for the most beautiful bride for me. This is your only quest, and I don't need any other gifts. If you find the most beautiful bride, I will give you my greatest blessing. Water gods. I disappeared in the air after saying these words. Only Yun Shi and the archer stayed where they were, looking at each other. Yun Q, what a nice name. Yun Shi didn't know the meaning of the name in 10 Leaves Alliance and the story about love and hate between Yun Hai and Yun Q. Your name is Yun Hai? That Yun Hai. Yun Q frowned after noticing Yun Shi's pseudonym. Was it a coincidence? She did know that there were many people named Yun Hai in Sky Sword God's domain. However, Water God chose Yun Hai and Yun Q as its apostles at the same time. What did this mean? Can you tell me where this place is and why I am here? Since she had accepted her new identity, then she must get the situation under her control. Obtaining the greatest achievement with the minimum price. This was always her life creed. This is a world named Water God's Fantastic Island. We have been chosen by the Water God, and have to accomplish Water God's quest as its apostles. Yun Shi tried to use the most simple words to describe the situation. Then what is the difficulty? The people on the island should have offered their most beautiful girls to their god willingly. Why didn't they do this? Yun Q seized the key problem from Yun Shi's words. Water God was a legendary creature. No matter which god's domain it was, it deserved to be accorded the highest level of reception. It was too easy to a legend-ranked being to have a bride. If Yun Hai wasn't wrong, this was Water God's fantastic island, then it should be the only god of the people on the island. How dare they disobey their god? In fact, a sky sword has come to the island and is going to slaughter Water God, Yun Shi said awkwardly. After all, he should have originally belonged to human camp at first. Sky sword. Who is this sky sword? Yun Q's pupils contracted. That's right. No pay, no gain. She obtained the power, then she must use the equivalent effort to pay for it. This corresponds with her understanding about the world's rules. Since Water God's mask gave her the hero-ranked power, then it was logical to fight against the Sky Sword for it. Even she knew that the Sky Sword must be super strong. She just hadn't known who the Sky Sword was. After all, there were a dozen Sky Swords in Sky Sword God's domain. Although they were all Sky Sword, but naturally, some of them were stronger. Theoretically, all Sky Swords were at the same level, but people still ranked them according to their legends and combat records. The top 3 Sky Swords were far beyond other Sky Swords. If the Sky Sword was one of the top 3 Sky Sword, they could just give up and surrender to the Sky Sword, because the 3 Sky Sword were titled as deicide. They really had killed gods. They were the reason why Sky Sword God's domain was one of the strongest God's domains in Eastern God's domain. As a member of 10 Leaves Alliance, of course she knew that they were invincible. I don't know, but I think that the Sky Sword should be very strong. Yun Shi knew nothing about the mysterious Sky Sword. No one knew the exact number of Sky Swords. Except for the 3 Sky Swords in Da Ju Sword domain, Da Han Sword domain, and Da Tang Sword domain, other Sky Swords didn't always stay in Sky Sword God's domain. Some of them had even disappeared for thousands of years. Yun Shi had no clue to figure out who the Sky Sword in Water God's world was. In that case, we should go to investigate it. First of all, we should grasp the situation. Since we are Water God's apostles now, we should do our best to finish the quest. Please treat this quest seriously. Yun Q was more stubborn than Yun Shi had imagined and had amazing enthusiasm. Quickly, they had ridden on the white tiger's back, coming to a small village nearby the forest. To the peaceful small village, the white tigers coming got the whole village astir. It's Mountain Lord. Is Mountain Lord angry? Be quick, be quick. Prepare sacrifices for Mountain Lord. Soon afterwards, people respectfully carried a farm cow as the sacrifice, walking to the white tiger. Roar. The white tiger triumphantly raised its paw to frighten the villagers, scaring them out of their guts. Stop, little Moo. Yun Shi patted the white tiger's head. Roar. The The white tiger felt wronged. It slouched down, showing Yun-shi and Yun-Q on its back to the villagers. What? There are 2 people on Mountain Lord's back. Impossible. Mountain Lord only follows Water God's command. How can it allow any human to sit on its back? Can it be? The villagers lived in the small village from generation to generation. Sometimes, the white tiger would come to eat sacrifices, and it was the greatest creature the villagers could see. They didn't believe their eyes looking at this scene. Most of the people immediately bated their breaths when they saw Yun-shi and Yun-Q on the white tiger's back. We are Water God's apostles. Are you Water God's people? Plop, plop, plop. The villagers finally realized who they just saw. They dropped to their knees one after another with tears coursing down their rough cheeks. Welcome, Water God's apostles. Welcome to our village. Praise the great Water God. My life already has no regrets now. Long live Mountain Lord. Thank you for bringing the Water God's apostles for us. Chapter 152. Lulu very well. At least, Water God is still worshipped in this village. Yun-Q let out a sigh of relief. After knowing that a sky sword had come to this world, she was worried that the situation had become hopeless. Judging from the situation in the village, she knew that she had been overly worried unnecessarily. At least the ordinary people in this world still thought that Water God was their only god. She could see incomparable, pure godliness in these villagers' eyes. They hadn't betrayed their god. Even though the village was just a corner of this whole world, she could tell that Water God hadn't alienated its people by being unsympathetic to them. People didn't think that their god was an evil god. This was a critical point for them to finish their quest of looking for the most beautiful bride for Water God. We need to rest a while in the village. Excuse me for bothering you. Yun-Q started to carry out her plan. The white tiger's identity was exalted than she had imagined. She had planned to apply its identity in a flexible way. Don't say that. It's our honor to serve you, Water God's apostles. Be quick. Go prepare food. And you, go pick flowers. This cattle. Kill it and cook it now. The coming of the 2 apostles was obviously a memorable story for the ordinary small village. All the villagers were fanatical, and this fact made Yun-Q feel very satisfied. After that, Yun-Q rested in the village head's house and found the general records of the village there. She spent the whole night remembering the history, population, land, and the number of livestock of the village. Of course, she paid most attention to the girls that were of the right age in the village. In this world, age for marriage is from 12 years old to 24 years old. But Water God is a legend-ranked being, it should not mind the age of its bride. In that case, I should liberalize the age range. The bride should be a pure girl but not a married woman, so the proper objective in the village is, Yun-Q recorded and made her plan. She had almost forgotten that there was another apostle who had the same mission. But it didn't matter. She had been used to it from a long time ago. An archer normally performed tasks alone. Moreover, she was a phantom archer who had the dark elf bloodline. It was normal for her to go her own way without any help. Her bloodline was cursed and despised, so she didn't trust anyone from a long time ago, and so she disguised herself. With the blood power the Water God's mask granted her, her disguise had become more flawless. As long as there wouldn't be another godlike being, no one would find out that he was a she, not to mention her dark elf bloodline. As Yun-Q read up the village records, Yun-shi was walking around the village. The white tiger, who was 3 meters tall and 10 meters long, was following behind him, acting like a kitten. Yun-Q was also a Water God's apostle, but it preferred staying with Yun-shi. Little Moo is a nice name. The white tiger thought and licked its paws, accepting its new name with a quiet conscience. Hello, Yun-shi stopped. He looked at a girl who was drying medicinal herbs in the sun. The girl was about 16 years old. Somehow, she had a pair of animal ears on her head, which looked pretty like a puppy's ears. Her face was comely and her eyes were timid and gentle. She blushed after seeing Yun-shi, which made her look even cuter. If Yun-Q was here, she could state her name, identity, and family tree precisely. But Yun-shi knew nothing about her. He just felt that she was pretty cute. Tempting heart doesn't need a reason, does it? However, Yoon-shi felt bewildered because she looked like a girl in his Starwings nights. If she didn't have the two animal ears on her head, then he would have said that she was that girl. Do you know me? Yoon-shi walked to the girl and asked. Yes. You are the great water god's apostle. The girl lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Yoon-shi's eyes. Not her. They just had the same face. Yoon-shi looked at the familiar but also unknown girl. He remembered that the Starwings Knights girl was called Lulu. She was an introverted girl. Somehow, she lost her memory after coming to this world and thought that she was a native girl in the village. The changes that had happened to the girl weren't just her animal ears. Yoon-shi could smell the scent of herbs from her fingers and he noticed the green potions beside the girl. Are you a pharmacist? Yoon-shi reached out his finger, touched a few of the potions and tasted one. The faint scent in his mouth and the cold feeling spreading in his body told Yoon-shi that it was a great potion. Yoon-shi even thought that she was the best pharmacist he had ever seen. If anyone in the village could be the water god's bride, then she must be the best qualified one. This girl's information looks good. She has a hope. At the same time, Yoon-kyu also noticed Lulu amongst all the villagers' names. She was only 16 years old but already a talented pharmacist. She was like a crane standing among chickens in the ordinary village. If possible, can you give me a bundle of Mountain Lord's hair? Lulu didn't know the reason, but she naturally felt intimacy from the exalted water god's apostle. Why? Even though the apostle was wearing a mask, but when she looked at him, she felt that she should be intimate with him. Her heart was beating fast, as if there were butterflies in her stomach. Chapter 153, Tiger's Power. Little Moo, give me some of your hair. Yoon-shi turned back and caught the white tiger's ear, stopping it from running away. Oh! The white tiger sobbed. It reluctantly lowered down its body to let Yoon-shi pluck its precious hair. Woo! It had been the Mountain Lord for so many years. It had never thought that it would be plucked someday. Good boy. Good little Moo. Yoon-shi praised the white tiger and stroked its head. Oh! The white tiger immediately wagged its tail excitedly. You want some of my hair? Take as much as you can. It raised its paw and plucked off dozens of its hairs with its mouth, then picked them to Yoon-shi. Good boy. Although little Moo was 10 times bigger than Yoon-shi, Yoon-shi still felt that it was just an innocent child in his mind. In some sense, its character was really similar to Mumu. As long as you treated it nicely, it would totally open its mind to you. Thank you, your great apostle. Lulu made a stealthy glance at Yoon-shi's mask, then joyfully took out various herbs from her room. In the legends, the Mountain Lord's hair contained a special power. Its white hair could be used to make a potion that could greatly increase the drinker's strength. As the sole pharmacist in the village, Lulu was only a step away from becoming a third-ranked pharmacist. As long as she could make the potion called Tiger's Power, she could register her name in the city as a third-ranked pharmacist. If so, she could wear a third-ranked white leaf emblem on her chest, and the ordinary village would also have its special local product. To her, it was already one of her most luxurious dreams. However, it was hard to obtain even a hair from the Mountain Lord. As a hero-ranked animal, its hair would never fall off naturally. In that case, Tiger's Power had become a watershed to divide the pharmacists in Water God's world. It was said that one needed to pay a great price to obtain a white tiger's hair from the priests in the city. Naturally, the small village didn't have that much money. There are too many. After obtaining the white tiger's hairs, Lulu finally realized what a great amount of power there was in the strands of hair. Her hand was stung even though she just touched the hairs lightly. Water God's apostle was too great. He could order the strong Mountain Lord to offer its hair so easily. Don't worry. Little Moo still has a lot of hair. Yoon-shi looked at Lulu kindly. In the outside world, she was just an ordinary female swordsman, but after becoming a pharmacist in this world, her talent was greatly released. It seemed that her hidden talent was finally blooming in this world. Yoon-shi could feel her natural talent from her skilled actions when she made the potion. Obviously, she was more worthy to be a pharmacist than to be a swordsman, but her sword skill talent was also good. As a civilian, she didn't have much choice in the outside world, because in Sky Sword God's domain, sword is the most excellent thing. Parents would do their best to support their child to learn sword skills rather than anything. Apparently, no one discovered Lulu's talent as a pharmacist till she came to this world. No, that's enough. Lulu waved her hands. Mountain Lord's hair was very valuable. Even if the apostle said okay, she didn't dare to ask for more. After all, Lulu wasn't a greedy girl. A few strands of hair were sufficient. Lulu, don't worry. You can do whatever you like. Yunshi looked at Lulu with curiosity, because she was so different from her past appearance in Yunshi's mind. Girls were really a mysterious presence. Even though they were linked through the seeds, he still didn't know what she was thinking. If he was still Mai, perhaps he wouldn't see Lulu's shy look. Lulu lost her past memories and became a native in Water God's world. However, she also exposed something she tried to hide in the outside world. Perhaps it was because this was just a dream world. In dreams, people always truly express themselves. Thank you. Lulu forced herself to focus on pounding medicine in the mortar. Her actions were light and nimble, just like her sword skill, containing a special talent. Yunshi remembered her performance in the past and finally confirmed that this was her talent. Maybe other girls had also awakened their hidden talents in this world. Pa, 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 pa. As Lulu pounded the medicine, the white tiger's strands of hair started to melt in the water mixed with various of herbs. Milky white liquid deposit in the mortar. Lulu had used up almost all the herbs she had collected, then made a bowl of the potion tiger's power. You're great, Apostle. Do you want to have a try? It isn't effective on hero-ranked people like you, but it tastes good. Lulu nervously looked at Yunshi. In order to prove that the potion was harmless, she licked it with her small tongue. Yunshi blushed looking at the white liquid on the corner of the girl's mouth. Then, he took over the bowl and took a sip. Ah! Yunshi suddenly realized that his mouth just touched the place where the girl's lips touched the bowl. Was it a coincidence? Was it an indirect kiss? Gee. Wooer. Lulu also realized it. Her face blushed like a ripe apple. Chapter 154, Lulu's Sadness. Was my behavior too disrespectful? I actually did such a discourteous thing to Water God's apostle. Wooer. Too shameful. I feel like dying. Lulu lowered her head for fear of seeing Yunshi's face. What a failure. Her joy of making the tiger's power potion had almost all gone. It tastes good. Yunshi looked at Lulu with a smile. He took another sip of the milky white potion again. The potion wasn't bitter at all. On the contrary, it contained a faint scent of herbs and just melted in his mouth. Unlike what Lulu just thought, the potion was effective on Yunshi, because essentially, he was still a mortal. He felt his stomach warm up after taking a sip. He felt his body become energetic. His strength had been permanently increased. He could now lift things which were 80 pounds heavier than before. Don't disdain this improvement, because the human body had its limit. Maybe a person could only lift a 100-pound dumbbell, but after exercising for a few months the person could lift a 200-pound dumbbell. However, when the person gradually reaches the limit of their body, even the slightest improvement needed the hardest exercise. A sip of the tiger's power potion could permanently increase a person's strength. Even though due to drug resistance its effect would become more and more weaker, it was still a wonder potion to most ordinary swordsmen. At least, Yunshi had never seen any similar potion being sold in the small village he was born in. Thinking about it again, it was natural that he wouldn't have seen such a fantastic potion before. After all, the potion needed the hero-ranked white tiger's strands of fur as a kind of material. How could ordinary people find so many hero-ranked animals in the outside world? None of the forces in the world had successfully cultured hero-ranked units in quantity. Even though Water God was super strong, it could only gift its power to its apostles, to let them obtain hero-ranked powers temporarily. In contrast, the tiger's power potion was more valuable. As a girl who could make the potion, Lulu was unique even within the Starwings night. According to Yunshi's understanding about the star trial, after he successfully finished this trial, Lulu could also reap some generous benefits. If there wasn't any incident, Lulu would become the first pharmacist in his Starwings night. Did I succeed? Lulu was confident of the potion she made, but she still felt nervous before Yunshi gave her a positive answer. No, perhaps it wasn't due to nervousness. Yes. Yunshi said. This was the first high-level potion he had ever drunk. Yeah. Lulu clenched her fists with a big smile on her face. Her effort and preparation finally had a perfect result. After she presented the tiger's power potion to the temple in the city, she would be entitled to wear the third-ranked white leaves emblem. The small village would have its first third-ranked pharmacist. You deserve it. Congratulations. Yunshi didn't understand why the potion was so important to Lulu, but he still felt glad to see her pleased expression because now, Lulu's innocent, cute face was more attractive than before. If it was her, maybe she could be Water God's bride. This idea kept lingering in Yunshi's heart. However, Yunshi still hesitated if he should do that, even though this was his ultimate quest in Water God's world. Very good. Long time no see, Tiger's power. She is a third-ranked pharmacist now? Yunshi didn't know since when Yunkyu had stood beside him looking at Lulu with a satisfied smile. After all, Lulu was the most excellent girl in this ordinary, small village. Her parents had died when they went into the mountains to gather herbs, but she had great talent as a pharmacist so she could live alone. Now, she had even waded across the barrier that stopped most of people in the world from reaching the third rank. Wherever she was very excellent. Such a girl can be Water God's bride. Yunhai, write down her name. Perhaps she can be Water God's bride. Yunkyu didn't hide her intention. In her eyes, since the villagers in this small village still believed in Water God, then they wouldn't refuse such an honorable thing. Water God's bride. Suddenly, the bowl in Lulu's hands fell on the ground and the milky white potion inside the bowl scattered all over the ground. Lulu looked sad and helpless, which deeply touched Yunshi's heart. Yunkyu, stop. He stopped Yunkyu and shook his head. Why, oh me? Lulu gazed at them with empty eyes. Pearl-like tears dripped down from her eyes like two waterfalls. Is it really so sad to be Water God's bride? Yunshi wanted to know her reason. No, but, Lulu forced a smile and said, in the past, none of Water God's brides had ever returned. To be Water God's bride means that I will leave this world forever. Yunshi was shocked. He understood. Lulu believed in Water God, but she also loved the village. She didn't want to leave the village and the people she knew. God's order is absolute, but people's hearts are complex. To be Water God's bride was a great event to the people in the world, but to the girls who would be married to Water God, it simply meant that they had to leave their home and family forever. Therefore, Lulu looked so depressed and even hopeless. A strange idea arose in Yunshi's heart. As if there was something inducing him, Yunshi remembered his fourth side quest. To love, Star Child. Life is too short, just enjoy it. Propose to as many girls as possible. After obtaining their marriage contracts, you can have the girl's power. You are never alone. He remembered that this was a quest without restricting time and camp. Lulu, if you don't want to marry Water God, how about marrying me? Chapter 155. Proposal. If you don't want to marry Water God, how about marrying me? Mumu was shocked. Did she get something wrong? What did the respectful apostle just say? He is proposing her? Gee. Wooer. What's wrong with the world? Why would Water God's apostle propose her? Oh, don't force yourself. You can say no. I don't mind. This is just a temporary method to help you. I think that if you agree to be my fiancé, then you won't need to leave the village and marry Water God. Yes, proposing to Lulu was the solution Yunshi gave. It looked as if Yunshi was just acting on impulse, but it was the best choice. If Lulu agreed to be his fiancé, then she wouldn't be chosen as a candidate bride for Water God. Besides, Yunshi could also obtain her power in this way. Anyway, It was just a promise and not a real marriage, it should be okay. After the star trial finished, she would only remember that she had a vague dream, just like Hua Hua. If Hua Hua remembered what he had done in his newbie trial and the first formal trial, she would go crazy. Well, you don't remember it, but I can tell you that we are not strangers. Looking at Lulu's puzzled face, Yunshi decided to reveal some bits of information to her. Really? Do you also have this feeling? Lulu looked at Yunshi happily and surprised. She wasn't the only person who had the feeling. When she had just seen Yunshi, she didn't know the reason, but she couldn't stop her heart from beating fast. She didn't often make medicine at the door, but today, she had suddenly felt that she should do this, as if she was waiting for a fateful encounter. In fact, me too, she said nervously, but still told Yunshi her feelings. I have a feeling that we had met before since I first saw you. If reincarnation is real, we must have known each other in our previous lives. No, there weren't any previous lives, but we are sleeping in the same cave now in the real world. Yunshi looked at Lulu's red face and trembling animal ears, appreciating her feelings. Hey, stop. You are Water God's apostle, how can you carry off Water God's bride? Yunkyu had watched them for a period of time. In fact, she had almost been blinded by their sparking big show of affection. She couldn't stand it any longer. As Water God's apostle, you were given Water God's mask, how could you betray Water God? Equivalent exchange was an immutable rule in the world. Since they had obtained Water God's masks, they should never betray Water God and join other camps. Sorry, but love just happened suddenly. I just can't control myself, Yunshi said and waited for Lulu's answer, even though he knew that even he wouldn't be convinced by this lie. I can't answer you now. Lulu hesitated. She froze on the ground. Finally, she shook her head and ran away like a little rabbit. I told you. She is a candidate bride for Water God. You can't do anything to her. If you really want to have a love affair, there are still several good girls in the village. You are Water God's apostle. It should be very easy to you. Yunkyu persuaded Yunshi from a rational standpoint. But I only want her. Yunshi couldn't tell Yunkyu the truth. He couldn't tell her that Lulu was a member of his Starwings Night, so she couldn't be chosen. Not only Lulu, all the Starwings Night's girls couldn't be chosen as Water God's bride. Yunshi felt that Water God's world was just too real. He didn't know what changes would happen to them if they became Water God's brides. He didn't dare take the risk. He wanted to do his best to help them. As for his proposal, at any rate, he was still wearing Water God's mask. No one would know his true identity in this world, and after this star trial finished, they would think that this was just a dream. The world was big. There must be other girls who could let Water God feel satisfied. Are you nuts? You are doing something that isn't suitable for your identity. Don't forget where your power comes from and the meaning of your mask. Yunkyu pointed at Yunshi's mask and warned him. I know how powerful Water God is, more than you'll ever know. Yunshi touched his silver mask. He knew that he couldn't change his camp and had to fight against the Sky Sword. But even so, he still wanted to finish his quest with his will unbending. The mask was fake, but his heart was real and hot. I hope that you really know and keep it in your mind. This girl has been chosen as a candidate bride for Water God. I won't allow you to do anything to her. Yunkyu stared at Yunshi as if he was something dirty. You don't understand. You don't understand. Yunshi shook his head. Whilst Yunshi and Yunkyu argued, Lulu was indulging in the ecstasy of being proposed to by Yunshi. How could she refuse him? How would she disagree with his proposal? She didn't want to disappoint him, however, the other respectful apostle was looking at them. She just couldn't say I agree in that case. Why? Why did he suddenly propose to me? It was too forward. Shouldn't love be more step by step and gentle? But he won't stay in this village too long. If I don't give him a positive answer, I may lose him. Woo-hoo. What should I do? What should I do? Be quick, figure out a way. The girl knocked her head with her pestle, as if this action could help her make a decision. However, she was very happy now. Pitter-pat, pitter-pat, pitter-pat. The girl's heartbeat echoed inside the small room. ineffably warm and charming. Chapter 156, Separate and Go Different Ways. The second day, Yoon-kyu showed her quality as an elite of 10 Leaves Alliance. She visited all the girls in the small village and recorded their heights, 3 measurements, and appearances on an exquisite scroll. Taking the scroll as a reference, she picked out 10 candidates as Water God's bride. She observed and rated them from all angles. At the end, Lulu was still the girl who had the highest rating. Her rating was much higher than others. If they could only choose Water God's bride from this small village, then she would be the only suitable candidate. At the same time, Yoon-shi was talking with the villagers. Dear Apostle, recently, the income tax man from the city increased our village's tax rate again. Our burden is too heavy. I heard that there is a new cult in the south. That is ridiculous. What do they want to do? Aren't we all Water God's believers? We haven't seen any Water God's apostle for hundreds of years. It's our honor to see you. What? Are there beautiful girls in the nearby villages? Well, of course there are. Compared to Yoon-kyu, who always collected information quickly and precisely, Yoon-shi was more amicable and approachable. He had become integrated with the villagers. Yoon-hai, don't waste your time. Yoon-kyu just passed by this place. She frowned after seeing this scene. They were just ordinary villagers, not at the same level as them at all. Even if Yoon-hai wanted to gather information from them, why didn't he just order them to tell him everything they knew? He didn't need to waste his time in this way. Roar. The white tiger raised its paws with hostility. Stop wasting your time. We must find the most suitable bride for Water God. Seeing that Yoon-shi wasn't going to listen her words, Yoon-kyu looked at him with disdain. What a stupid man. Don't you know that your efficiency is just too bad? Yoon-kyu, I'm not wasting my time. It is just not that simple. Yoon-shi leisurely stood up. This time, the star trial was so different from his past experience. Because this was a real world. Yoon-shi didn't know how the stars could do this, but he had confirmed that the people in this world were real. They had independent memories and souls. They had their love, hatred, anger, and fear. This wasn't a lifeless world like the dark forest or the tall tower had been. This was a world of colors of every kind. The more he understood Water God's world, the more thoughts and feelings he experienced within his mind. Yoon-shi could feel this world's difference. This world was a living painting, containing himself and Yoon-kyu. This time, he wasn't fighting alone. I don't understand. Why did Water God choose you as its apostle? Yoon-kyu said and looked at Yoon-shi with a puzzled look. Didn't he want to obtain Water God's last reward? Equivalent exchange was a constant rule for her. The stronger the power she wanted to obtain, the more the effort she had to input. She must move on her road as quickly as she could, so she didn't have time to stop. This world's background and people meant nothing to her. Her only goal here was to find a suitable bride for Water God. Well, you can just take your time here. I will go to the next village. No common goal, no common cause to cooperate. Yoon-kyu felt that her partner, the apostle who named himself Yoon-hai, was really an unreliable man. She didn't want to cooperate with him any longer. You go first. Little Moo and I will stay here for a period of time. Maybe our efficiency will be higher after separating. Goodbye, Yoon-kyu said, then immediately left the village with carrying the scroll she had made. Perhaps they wouldn't see each other again. Their ways of doing things were totally different. She was prepared to walk around the world as fast as possible, then find the most beautiful bride for Water God to complete the quest. As for Yoon-hai, perhaps after she finished the quest, he would be still wandering around this area. Sigh, why did Water God choose him? Roar. After Yoon-kyu left the village, the white tiger stretched itself, then turned its body near Yoon-shi. In its heart, it felt that the apostle named Yoon-kyu was always as tense as a bowstring that was stretched taut, as if something forced him to keep moving without taking a rest. He was too dangerous. Yoon-kyu, what an incredible guy. Although Yoon-kyu despised Yoon-shi, Yoon-shi still felt that the archer's temperament was respectable. He could feel Yoon-kyu's belief of never giving up in any circumstance. He was a real warrior. But wasn't he an archer? Why does he have such a warrior-style temperament? Isn't an archer a career where one is always sniping their enemies stealthily from a distance? Huff, huff. When Yunshi was thinking, a feeble figure ran towards him. Cough, ha, Lulu was running with all her strength. Perhaps she had never run as fast as this in her life. Thank God. You haven't left. Lulu felt a sense of relief looking at Yunshi's silver mask. Everyone said that the apostle had left. I thought that it was you. Oh, it's Yunkyu. He has gone to the next village. Yunshi's heart ached as he looked at the girl panting for breath. I regret it. I'm regretting now. Lulu's shoulders slightly trembled. When she heard the news that the apostle had left, she felt her heart go cold as if she was falling into a frozen lake. Water gods' apostles didn't often appear in ordinary people's world. They were water gods' spokesman and servant. Sometimes, they would come to the human world, but it wouldn't be for long. If it was Yunshi but not Yunkyu who had left the village, Lulu felt that she would regret for a lifetime. Because there was still something she hadn't told him. The answer to Yunshi's proposal. Maybe her answer would be counterintuitive and profane in the eyes of the villagers. However, it was the answer she had thought of for a whole night, which she would never regret. I agree. Yes, I want to be your bride. In the morning mist, the girl's blushing face was bright like the rising sun. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.